Chapter 1, The Simulation Era. The Life Lantern has sufficient energy, and you can activate the simulation once. Please note that in every simulation, no matter how many years you experience, only a day will pass in the main world. In your simulation, the higher your score, the better the rewards. If you break through the limits of the simulation, you can obtain all the rewards, unique treasures, cultivation methods, and even immortality. Do you want to light up your life lantern to enter your second simulated life? Li City. At the central field of Qingyun First Middle School, 3,000 youngsters who had just turned 16 years old were sitting on the simulation square. The simulation square was more than 1 meter tall. It was dark and colorful, emitting mysterious fluctuations of time and space. The students who participated in the simulated life could anchor their souls through the simulation square and light up their life lanterns. From there, they could enter the simulated world and experience an exciting life. Amidst the noise, Lin Qiye took a deep breath. His handsome face was cold, with a sense of calmness and security. However, the young man's eyes trembled, and the fidgeting of his hands betrayed his nervousness. Beside him was Chen Fan, who had been in the same class as him for 4 years, and was sweating profusely. Brother Ye, we have failed once. We only have one chance left. If we fail the second time, the life lantern's energy will not be able to support us to light up the third simulation. We will only be able to rely on one of the galaxy practitioners. Not only will we be reduced to childbearing machines for the rest of our lives, but we will also have to endure the corrosion of the black fog. Not to mention, we'll only have 30 years to live. Are you feeling confident? Chen Fan asked as he looked at Lin Qiye. He wanted to gain confidence and strength from his brother Ye, just like before. However, it was different this time. Although Lin Qiye appeared calm on the surface, he was extremely anxious on the inside. There was even a hint of pessimism. As a traveler, he had already seen many things. Life was full of tragedies, whether it was in real life or simulated life. No one knows which came first, tomorrow or an accident. For example, Lin Qiye's first simulation was absurd and miserable. You were born as a weak, preemie boy. You turned 1. Your family was poor. Your parents saw that you were ugly and sick, so they threw you into a cesspit and drowned you. You died. His first simulation was extremely tragic. As an infant, Lin Qiye did not have time to struggle before he was drowned by the stench, which directly caused a precious simulation opportunity to be lost. If his second simulation was so tragic again, he would be screwed. However, to give his good friend confidence, Lin Qiye still forced a smile. Don't be afraid. We've hit rock bottom. The only way is up. Good luck. With a little bit of luck and caution, we will be able to create a life lantern gem and change our fate. It is impossible to be unlucky all the time. Hearing Lin Qiye's words, Chen Fan nodded heavily. Thank you, brother Ye. I am much more confident now that you have comforted me. Seeing that Chen Fan regained his spirits, Lin Qiye smiled gently. However, his heart was in turmoil. His right thumb had already pinched the knuckles of his index finger until they turned blue. Damn it! Lin Qiye was unwilling, truly unwilling. After 2 lifetimes, how could he be willing to continue being mediocre? However, the 3,000 youths present were all the losers from their first simulation. After a day, 98% of the students here would leave dejectedly. They would blend into the crowd, struggle for their lives, and eventually die. Life's tragedies were so unreasonable. Suddenly, in the sky above the square, the school's broadcast rang. Students participating in the second simulation, please anchor your soul to the simulation square and light your life lantern. Anchor your soul so that you won't get lost. Only then will your soul be able to bring your physical body back to the main world. Lighting your life lantern can illuminate your life experience and predict the key storyline of your life in advance so that you can make changes. Remember, in the process of the simulation, you must be careful. Break through the limits of your life, and you can become a true traveler, defying the heavens and changing your fate. When the broadcast started, the hearts of the 3,000 students were in their throats. They were all failures in the first simulation. If they couldn't seize this last chance, then they would be stuck at the lowest point. This was the moment to decide their fate. And as a transmigrator, how could Lin Qiye be willing to remain ordinary? Mother ***, I will go down with pride. If I can't accept it, I will resist. I don't believe that I will always be a loser. Lin Qiye spat, his eyes filled with stubbornness and determination. This time, no matter what the opening was, he had to defy the heavens and change his fate successfully. Thinking of this, a few words escaped from Lin Qiye's mouth. Anchor the soul, light up the life lantern, and illuminate the simulated life. As he finished his sentence, a bright light appeared on the simulation square. Lin Qiye was enveloped by the chaotic light in an egg-shaped aura. Detected abnormal soul strength. Awakened permanent SSS grade talent. The Deduction of Genesis. The Deduction of Genesis can deduce everything. The more knowledge one had, the more detailed the deduction. However, every deduction required the consumption of movement points. Movement points can be obtained by changing a critical fated event. Current movement points, 100. The sudden voice stunned Lin Qiye for a moment. Permanent SSS grade talent? The deduction of Genesis? Isn't this the cheat code that all transmigrators must have? Lin Qiye was extremely excited. Before he had the time to understand his cheat code, the notification sounded again. The simulation has begun. Your life lantern is burning to light up the path of your life. This world doesn't have any spiritual energy. It only relies on technology. Some countries are in chaos, some countries are in shambles, and some countries are trying their best after experiencing humiliation. 0 years old. You were born into an ordinary family in a city. You are a boy. 2 years old. You suddenly developed a terrible disease and had a deformed head. Your intelligence is low. 9 years old. Your growth is slow, and your IQ is low. 15 years old. You dropped out of school. Your parents were worried about you, and their hair turned gray. They fell ill and passed away. 16 years old. Your landed property was stolen by your relatives, and you became a beggar on the street. 17 years old. You, a deformed child with a low IQ, also suffered from a terminal illness as a teenager. 18 years old. Your terminal illness broke out, and you, who had suffered a lot, finally died under the overpass. Remarks, like how a rope breaks from the thin part, bad luck finds the unfortunate. Your life is a complete tragedy. A deformed head, low intelligence, lost both parents, chased out of the family, was poor, and suffered from a terminal illness as a teenager. You are considered lucky to be able to live until the age of 18. Do you want to enter a simulated life and change your fate? Lin Qiye, who was excited until a moment ago, looked at his short life seriously. He was completely numb. He was deformed at 2 years old, had low intelligence at 9 years old, had both parents passing away at 15 years old, became a beggar at 16 years old, was diagnosed with a terminal illness at 17 years old, and died at 18 years old. It was a terrible mess. He couldn't see any hope in this life. Can he really change his fate? Why did he suddenly develop a terminal illness? Why did he become deformed and have low intelligence? Moreover, he couldn't survive a terminal illness no matter what. A terminal illness is a disease that could not be overcome and had no cure. To complete this simulated life, he had to survive the sudden deformity at the age of 2, the death of his parents, and the terminal illness as an 18-year-old youth. These 3 events were all nightmare difficulties. Lin Qiye's face was ashen. He could only place his hopes on his permanent SSS grade talent. The deduction of Genesis. Can you deduce a more feasible plan? Lin Qiye wanted to test the effect of his deduction talent. 100 movement points were not enough to deduce a complete plan. During the simulation, there should be other opportunities. His subconscious reminded Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. He followed his intuition. He wasn't rich, so he should make good use of his resources. He couldn't act recklessly. Thinking of this, Lin Qiye exhaled, his gaze resolute. Begin to enter life. I want to defy the heavens and change my fate. As his voice fell, the notification sounded. Entering simulated life. The scientific knowledge from the main world has been completely blocked, unable to be brought into simulated life. Simulated life has officially begun. Chapter 2, The First Life. The cause of his serious illness. Successfully changing fate? In country Xia, a third-grade hospital in Jiangnan City. The crisp and clear cry of a baby sounded from the delivery room. A baby boy was born. He cried loudly, and it could even be said that he was full of energy. Amidst the loud cry, the baby boy's lungs breathed in the fresh air happily. This baby boy was Lin Qiye. The female doctor carried the wrinkled baby and placed him into the incubator. Congratulations. Your baby's cries are loud and clear, and his body status is normal. He will definitely grow up healthily in the future. The corner of Lin Qiye's mother's mouth curled up with a maternal smile. Father Lin was also excited. Apart from taking care of his wife, he would also lie on the side of the incubator and make faces to entertain Lin Qiye. Unfortunately, Lin Qiye was in no mood to laugh. Sorrow lingered on his wrinkled face. Sigh. He felt bitter in his heart. When he was 2 years old, he would have a serious illness and become a deformed child with low intelligence. It was commonly known as being a retard. From then on, his life's tragedy began. If he did not reverse this tragic event that affected fate, he wouldn't be able to break the limits of this simulated life. If he couldn't break the limits, he wouldn't be able to become a galaxy practitioner. His life in the main world would also be filled with darkness. Lin Qiye thought quickly. If I want to solve the illness I would encounter at 2 years old, I need to take it step by step and plan it out bit by bit. There are only 2 reasons for this major illness. One is the internal cause, and the other is the external cause. Lin Qiye, who had lived 2 lifetimes, realized that although the knowledge from the main world was blocked, he could still access the basic knowledge from his previous life. He could skillfully use Ma Zhe's methodology. There are many external causes, and I can't eliminate them for now. As for internal causes, I'll first deduce my health condition and eliminate some of it. As he thought about this, Lin Qiye activated his deduction of Genesis. With a thought, the deduction began. This deduction consumed 10 movement points, 90 remaining movement points. Deduction successful. Under the current situation, you have a healthy body. Only your bone marrow has a congenital acute disease gene. The genes will suddenly erupt when you became an adult. Listening to the information deduced, Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. From the deduction, the serious illness at the age of 2 was not caused internally. Then what is the reason? Lin Qiye was a little confused. Of course, he was not too conflicted. He had already decided that he would have a physical examination at the age of 1. Another physical examination when he was 1.5 years old. 2 physical examinations should be more than enough. My life won't be in danger for the time being. I need to seize the time to let my growth be ahead of that of other babies. With a strong physique, I can increase my chances of surviving the illness. Lin Qiye's thoughts were clear. His talent was the SSS level deduction of Genesis. He could deduce everything. As long as he was careful, he should be able to survive it safely. With this thought in mind, Lin Qiye felt at ease. An hour later, he was hungry and started to wail. The nurse carried him to drink milk. After eating his fill, Lin Qiye felt full of strength. He started to punch and kick around in the incubator. His small limbs became more and more powerful. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Qiye grew visibly. His originally wrinkled face became fair and chubby. His arms were like chubby lotus roots, and his eyes were as black as gems. They rolled around like the eyes of a best-selling cute doll. His height was also 7 centimeters taller than the other babies born on the same day as him. He was the strongest baby in the hospital, the one who liked to play the most, the one with the loudest laugh, and the one with the softest smile. The nurses all doted on him. They often ran over to play with him and praised his uniqueness and cuteness in front of his parents. Lin Qiye's parents were immersed in a strong sense of pride every day. 3 months passed in a flash. In his parents' small wedding room, Lin Qiye was crawling all over the floor. He had a great appetite and could drink milk several times a day. In addition, he began to exercise and develop his body on the first day of his birth. Therefore, he was 20 centimeters taller than the other babies born in the same batch. However, having a great appetite also brought about a problem. At this moment, his mother was sitting on the sofa and sighed slightly. "Hubby, there's not enough milk. Crucian carp soup, taro soup, and milk ginseng stewed pork rib soup are all useless. This little thing eats too much." Father Lin clicked his tongue in wonder and patted Lin Qiye's butt in amusement. "Sigh, we can't help it. This is how all the smart kids behave. I will buy some milk powder tomorrow. What do you think?" "Sure. Remember to buy from a big brand." Hearing the conversation between his parents, Lin Qiye, who was crawling all over the floor, suddenly trembled. "Milk powder? This is it?" Hiss. Lin Qiye immediately grasped a keyword that could change his fate. He understood that the reason for his deformity was probably because of this. Ever since he was born, he had been growing healthily, and there was no possibility of him getting sick. In other words, the internal cause was excluded. His deformity could only be caused by external factors. And the external factor that could cause him to be deformed and retarded should be the contaminated milk powder. Lin Qiye didn't know if there had been contaminated milk incidents in this world, but there was a sensational incident in his previous life about this. The symptoms of those affected babies were a deformed head and low intelligence. Those symptoms were exactly the same as his. It's definitely because of the contaminated milk powder. Lin Qiye was determined. "I'll test it with my deduction of Genesis later. If it's poisonous, I won't drink it. I'll cry until my parents change the milk powder. If I don't drink it, I'll be able to live past 2 years old." Lin Qiye was excited. It wasn't easy. He had been careful since birth and finally saw a glimmer of hope to change his fate. And this hope was close at hand. He could almost grasp it. That afternoon, Lin Qiye's father returned from the infant store with a can of milk powder. The can was beautifully packaged and had the words "safe for babies" written on it. Staring at the milk powder can, Lin Qiye immediately consumed 10 movement points and used his deduction of Genesis. Deduction completed. The milk powder has been added. If a baby drinks it, it will also cause. Shameless profiteer. Lin Qiye spat in his heart. If it weren't for his experience in 2 lifetimes of transmigration and the life lantern guiding him in advance, in addition to the SSS grade talent deduction of Genesis, he would have been screwed. Who would have thought of this? Lin Qiye shook his head sadly. Luckily, he had a plan. Under no circumstances can he drink the contaminated milk powder. Lin Qiye's gaze was firm. But not far away, his father's laughter entered his ears. "He he he. My dear son, the milk is here." Lin Qiye was speechless. He didn't even want to bother with it. He crawled around on the ground to let himself develop faster. My son, come and drink. Father Lin fed the pacifier to Lin Qiye's mouth. Lin Qiye pretended to take a sip, then spat out the milk on the ground in disgust. He burst into tears, crying loudly. It was so loud that Father Lin's head was trembling. Why aren't you drinking? What are you doing? How are you being a father? Don't force the child if he doesn't want to drink. Mother Lin's face was full of heartache as she hugged Lin Qiye and comforted him. Is it because the quality of the milk powder isn't good? My son has always been good at eating. He's the most obedient. It must be because the milk powder doesn't suit his taste. Father Lin was puzzled. That can't be. This is the most famous brand in the country. Mother Lin's tone was doting. Let's change the milk powder. Maybe it's because our son doesn't like it. After that, she started to breastfeed Lin Qiye. Father Lin awkwardly went out. Half an hour later, he brought back a new can of milk powder. Lin Qiye tested it once with the deduction of Genesis. There was still a problem. He took a sip and then vomited and cried. His parents had to change 3 cans of milk powder in a row until the quality was considered acceptable. Lin Qiye felt at ease. He opened his arms and sucked wildly. And so, the cautious Lin Qiye grew stronger and stronger. However, to ensure his safety, Lin Qiye was extremely cautious. Every month, he would test the quality of the milk powder once to ensure there was no danger. He lived carefully and naturally past the first disaster of his life. After he passed the test, the sound of the life lantern rang in Lin Qiye's mind. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. 1 year old. You grew up well. 2 years old. You avoided the milk powder incident and didn't get hurt. Congratulations. You defied the heavens and changed your fate successfully. It's really incredible. Your parents couldn't help but show off your glorious deeds when you drank the milk, and your neighbors were amazed at you. The life lantern gem is 1/3% formed. You obtained 1000 movement points. Chapter 3, Choosing the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom Card. As the process of changing your fate is incredible, you have received an additional reward. You can choose one of the following 3 bronze reincarnation cards. Note, the reincarnation card can be brought back to the main world, and it will take effect in all future movements. Champion Athlete Constitution Card, Bronze. You have had a strong physique since you were young, and you have the potential to become a world-class athlete. Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom Card, Bronze. You have been smart and studious since you were young, and you have the potential to win the Nobel Prize as a scientist. Wearing this card, you can also bring all the knowledge of 2 academic fields from the main world into this simulation. Ultimate Energy Card, Bronze. You have been energetic since you were young. Your energy is 3 times that of an ordinary person, and you only need to sleep for 3 hours a day. After reading the rewards, the 2-year-old Lin Qiye completely let go of his nature. He giggled, and his laughter was like that of the characters in Teletubbies. The rewards were extraordinary. They were so good that Lin Qiye found it hard to believe. One had to know that movement points were the common currency of the galaxy world and the main world. Regardless of whether it was resources or treasures, they all needed to be purchased with movement points. And 1000 movement points had met Lin Qiye's expectations. His SSS grade talent, the deduction of Genesis, required exactly 1000 movement points to deduce the next solution to his dire situation. In other words, with these precious points, Lin Qiye could defy the heavens and change his fate. Thinking of this, Lin Qiye rolled on the ground happily, like a kitten caught in the sunlight. Mother Lin picked him up and smoothed the wrinkles on his clothes. Good boy, what are you happy about? Lin Qiye did not speak. His thoughts stopped on the additional reward. He knew about it. When he was in school, he had learned the corresponding knowledge. It was difficult to trigger the additional reward. One had to avoid a dead end during the simulation process to trigger it. His teacher had said that the additional reward was something that could only be found by chance. Even if one had simulated the galaxy world hundreds of times, they might not be able to encounter it once. However, Lin Qiye never expected that the first time he defied the heavens and changed his fate, he would trigger the rare additional reward. As expected, life was full of surprises. Lin Qiye clicked his tongue in wonder, and his gaze danced on the 3 cards. But, 3 reincarnation cards. How should I choose? Lin Qiye was in a dilemma. The Constitution card and the Wisdom card were both top-notch treasures, and he couldn't bear to part with either of them. The Champion Athlete Constitution card could allow the wearer to have a strong physique from a young age and not die easily. The Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom card could make the wearer smart and studious from a young age and become a Nobel Prize scientist. Lin Qiye didn't know what to choose. He was in a dilemma. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he thought of a solution. I'll first deduce the perfect plan to change fate and then choose the reincarnation card based on the plan. Wouldn't that be perfect? Thinking of this, Lin Qiye immediately used 1000 movement points to activate the deduction of Genesis. After a few seconds, Lin Qiye obtained the answer. Conquering a terminal illness was a high-level difficulty problem. If he wanted to directly deduce a plan to conquer it, he would need to spend 10,000 movement points. Lin Qiye was not that rich. The solution he obtained was to understand the technology of this world and become a leader in the field of biotechnology. On one hand, the more profound the knowledge he had, the more exquisite the solution he could deduce. On the other hand, he could use the entire country's strength to conquer a terminal illness. Lin Qiye understood. I choose the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom card. The moment he made his choice, a clear current surged into Lin Qiye's mind, and the speed of his thoughts increased dozens of times. His eyes were bright and shining, appearing to be exceptionally intelligent. The Wisdom card's bonus is really high. I can move on to the next step of the plan. Lin Qiye was quite happy. The next important plan is to go to kindergarten. If I am still in the tragic version of life, I would have gone to kindergarten at the age of 9. But now, fate has changed. Everything has changed. I want to go to kindergarten when I'm 2 years old. This is the most perfect plan. However, if I want to go to kindergarten, I have to show my talent and intelligence. Otherwise, my parents won't allow it, and the kindergarten may not make an exception to take me in. Lin Qiye nodded secretly and immediately cupped Mother Lin's face with his small hands. Books? I want to read. Mommy, I want to read. The childish words that came out of Lin Qiye's mouth frightened his mother. My son, what did you say? Books. I want to read. I want to read. His mother was a little confused. A 2-year-old child couldn't speak so clearly. Moreover, he wanted to read right away. Wasn't that a little strange? However, she thought of the magical incident where her son vomited after drinking a mouthful of poisonous milk powder when he was young, coupled with the fact that his height was comparable to that of a 4-year-old child. Mother Lin was no longer surprised. She placed Lin Qiye on the ground, took out a children's drawing book, and unfolded it in front of him. Lin Qiye was speechless. To a genius, this book was terrifyingly retarded. Lin Qiye did not mind. Before Mother Lin could read it to him, he flipped through the children's drawing book. Every page he flipped, he would spit out a word. Lion, tiger, bear, crocodile. It's too simple. I don't want to read it. Mother Lin could only throw away the children's drawing book. She took out a children's arithmetic book. Lin Qiye flipped through the book and reiterated all the numbers. It's too easy. I don't want to read it. His mother was stunned. My little son, are you a genius? With your level of intelligence, are you really 2 years old? Lin Qiye did not think much of it and casually memorized a multiplication table. Then, he placed his hands on his hips and stood proudly. I want to go to kindergarten. I want to study in kindergarten. Mother Lin was a little conflicted. Kindergarten was for children who are 4 or 5 years old. Should her son go to kindergarten when he was 2 years old? Wasn't it a little early? However, in terms of height, her son had already developed to the level of a 4-year-old child. Going to kindergarten was not a big deal. More importantly, he was too smart. He was so smart that he could memorize the multiplication table by heart. The multiplication table should be second-grade knowledge, right? Where did he learn it? On TV? Mother Lin's mind was a little confused, but she felt more excitement and pride. Her son was definitely a genius. She was overjoyed. Holding her cell phone, she quickly contacted the best kindergarten in the neighborhood, Hungtongtong Kindergarten. The fee was 30,000 yuan per semester. Mother Lin paid the fee quickly. It allowed Lin Qiye to successfully blend into the kindergarten. Because Lin Qiye was too cute and younger than the other kids, the kindergarten teachers took extra care of him. They coaxed Lin Qiye as if he was a baby. However, they never expected that Lin Qiye, who had been obedient, would start to show his true colors after half an hour. First, he mingled with the children. Then, he shouted in the crowd, "Our parents won't come to pick us up. They don't want us anymore. They threw us here because they abandoned us." Then, Lin Qiye burst into tears. He cried so hard as if his heart was torn apart, and his voice shook the clouds. The other children were a little confused at first, but after 10 seconds, they cried like dominoes had been pushed down. Some of the children were more sensible and did not cry initially. Lin Qiye would walk up to them and say, "Mom and Dad have already thrown us away, right? 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 Right?" Under Lin Qiye's crazed attacks, which child could control their emotions? In the entire kindergarten, not a single child was spared, and a group of crying children was not easy to coax. Usually, after coaxing a few, they would be hooked into crying again. It took the young teachers 2 hours to slightly calm down the bawling children, but they were still sobbing quietly. In the end, Lin Qiye once again fanned the flames at the side. The children who had stopped crying fell into the second round of breakdown. Even the children from the next class joined the wailing team. The young teachers were on the verge of a mental breakdown. Even the principal had a breakdown. She hurriedly called Mother Lin. "Is it Lin Qiye's parents? I'm sorry, your child is really too different from the rest. Mother Lin, I beg you, Please take him away. The kindergarten is willing to compensate you with double the tuition fee. Mother Lin was speechless. She tried her best to apologize and try to redeem herself, but the principal pleaded with tears in her eyes. And so, on the first day of school, Lin Qiye was honorably expelled from kindergarten. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. He even got back the 30,000 tuition fees. After returning home, Lin Qiye looked at Mother Lin with an innocent expression. Mom, I want to go to primary school. I want to go to primary school for lessons. Lin Qiye didn't want to waste time, because his terminal illness would erupt at the age of 18. He had to seize every second to complete his heaven-defying fate-changing plan. Chapter 4, The Start of My Feel-Good Life, College Entrance Examination Top Scholar at 5 years old. You want to go to primary school? Listening to Lin Qiye's baby voice pleading, Mother Lin was in a dilemma. Her good son was a genius, but she still wanted to play with Lin Qiye every day. Children were so much fun, especially cute, smart, and healthy children like Lin Qiye. He was always obedient when fed milk. He would shout and say when he had to use the toilet. He would not wake up in the middle of the night to torture her. Lin Qiye had never let her experience the hardships of raising a child. She only had real happiness and a chest full of pride. But what if the little one went to primary school? She was not ready to separate from him yet. Mother Lin shook her head reluctantly. Son, you're only 2 years old. You're too young. The school won't have you. Of course, Lin Qiye had already thought of a countermeasure. I'll register at the school and study at home. Mom, you can accompany me to the exams. His suggestion made Mother Lin's eyes light up. Not only would she not bury her young son's talent, but she could also take good care of him. She immediately called her husband to discuss it. After Father Lin learned of Lin Qiye's talent, he was so shocked that he jumped up in joy at the company. I knew my son is a genius. Since that's the case, I'll apply for leave tomorrow to help him with the enrollment procedures. The next day, Father Lin and Mother Lin brought Lin Qiye to the best primary school in Jiangnan City. The principal didn't agree at first. A 2-year-old kid should still be sucking on milk, right? How could he go to primary school? He probably couldn't even count 100 numbers. However, Lin Qiye opened his mouth and iterated the multiplication table, memorizing it thoroughly. The principal was taken aback. He pulled out a math paper for the first grade of primary school students for Lin Qiye to answer. Lin Qiye immediately demonstrated his intelligence, and he could give the correct answer with a glance. The principal was dumbstruck. He thought of those geniuses who went to university at the age of 14 and entered the youth class at 13. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of air. Your son is a genius? He's definitely a genius. The principal was ecstatic. After teaching for more than 30 years, he had finally met a child prodigy. Lin Qiye could instantly solve a first grader's mathematics exam paper at the age of 2. He couldn't imagine what kind of heights Lin Qiye would reach in the future. If he nurtured Lin Qiye, how big of a boost would it be to his reputation? The principal inhaled and looked at Lin Qiye with a face full of shock. According to what Mother Lin said, I'll accept you into the school. You'll study at home and only need to take the midterms and final exams. As he spoke, the principal applied for Lin Qiye's enrollment in the 2nd grade of primary school with his fastest speed. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. After studying for more than half a year, Lin Qiye skipped grades consecutively while the principal trembled in shock. He was promoted to the first year of middle school. The principal who skipped grades for Lin Qiye clicked his tongue in amazement and praised endlessly. It's unbelievable. There really are geniuses in the world. The principal had a strange expression on his face. Lin Qiye was only 3 years old, yet he could master all the primary school knowledge. He could even understand the contents of the middle school syllabus. It was too terrifying. The principal's arm trembled as he stamped a bright red seal. Then, he smiled and rubbed Lin Qiye's soft cheeks. Qiye, you should continue to study at home. You only need to take the exams at school. Lin Qiye nodded coldly. That night, the sound of a notification immediately rang in Lin Qiye's mind. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 2 years old. You have entered kindergarten. You are good-looking and have a strong body. The children in kindergarten are all close to you. Due to your demonic performance at the kindergarten, your family has obtained an additional income. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 2 years old. You entered primary school. The train of fate is moving at lightning speed towards another track. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 3 years old. You entered junior middle school. Your name as a genius has been spread out and published in newspapers. You are destined to be extraordinary. The life lantern gem is forming. You received 500 movement points. After reading the notification, Lin Qiye smiled. 500 movement points was undoubtedly a huge sum of money. With these points, Lin Qiye had the confidence to deal with all the changes. However, despite feeling confident, Lin Qiye was still cautious. He had changed his fate twice, but it did not mean that he could let his guard down. When he was studying in the simulation school, he learned that in the course of life, accidents could happen anytime. He might have changed the events of his childhood, but if he was not careful, he might trigger a series of accidents such as robbery, kidnapping, car accidents, falling objects, X disease, and so on. Lin Qiye decided to keep a low profile. He was only a little more than 3 years old, and it was best for him to stay at home and study by himself. Besides studying, he would jump around and do some exercise. Meanwhile, Lin Qiye's diet was scientific and balanced. It caused his height to skyrocket. At the age of 4, he was already at the height of a 7-year-old child. His appearance had also changed from cute to handsome. He was a handsome little boy, but looks were useless in the face of a terminal illness. Knowledge was the only thing that matters. Lin Qiye knew this very well. Before the sudden outbreak of his terminal illness, everything else was illusory other than scientific knowledge. Therefore, Lin Qiye studied even harder. He only used half a year to master middle school knowledge. With a perfect score in 6 subjects and 147 marks in language, he entered the best high school in Jiangnan City, Jiangnan First High School. A 4-year-old top scorer in the middle school examination? What a prodigy! It caused a small-scale sensation. Many media reporters gathered near the neighborhood, wanting to write a hit story. However, Lin Qiye's parents refused all media interviews. The kid likes to read and study. He has a strong desire to learn. I hope the outside world won't disturb him. His parents' voice also caused the media to be condemned by society. Under the condemnation, the media and newspaper personnel left dejectedly. The principal of Jiangnan First High School personally visited Lin Qiye's home. Lin Qiye's talent was too extraordinary. All the school leaders of Jiangnan First High School were willing to give Lin Qiye the green light. He could study at home, and he only needed to be accompanied by his parents when he took the exam. Lin Qiye was happy with the outcome. After all, he had the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom Card, so it was easy for him to learn high school knowledge by himself. In just a year, Lin Qiye had completely mastered the syllabus. At this time, he was only 5 years old. Although his scientific diet allowed him to reach the height of a 9-year-old child, which was about 1.3 meters, he was still a country bumpkin compared to a 1.6 or even 1.8 meters high school student. However, this did not affect Lin Qiye. He begged the school in advance to register him for the college entrance examination. Therefore, he could participate in this year's college entrance examination. Thus, at 5 years old, Lin Qiye was admitted to the National University of Science and Technology in Country Xia, majoring in biological science as the top scholar in the science stream in Jiangnan City. He became a top scholar in the science stream at 5. It was definitely a hot topic for news. The media reports were overwhelming. Lin Qiye had become a popular figure during the summer vacation. The media called him a prodigy, but many people attacked and abused him online. Haha. Country Xia loves to train toddlers for exam-oriented education the most. To do questions smoothly at the age of 5, he definitely won't be able to do scientific research in the future. What a pity. A kid at the age of 5 is at his prime to train his scientific thinking and creativity, but he was ruined by the exam-oriented education. The exam-oriented education ruined another genius. Now you know the difference between Country Xia and other countries, right? There were many malicious comments on the internet, but Lin Qiye did not care at all. He only had 13 years left. In these 13 years, he had to do everything he could to cure the terminal disease in his body. Otherwise, this simulation would be considered a failure. Lin Qiye didn't dare to think about the consequences. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. He was determined. This was his last chance, and he had to seize it. Therefore, Lin Qiye paid no attention to what was happening outside the house. He was neutral to all the comments, regardless of praise or hate. He was only trying his best to swim in the ocean of knowledge. And the moment Lin Qiye received his university acceptance letter, the sound of a notification rang in his mind once again, making him feel relaxed and happy. Chapter 5, An Exciting Pattern, Successfully Defying Heavens to Change Your Fate, 4 years old. You performed well in school and skipped grades many times. You became the top scorer in the city's middle school entrance exam. You are a prodigy. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 5 years old. You became the top scorer in the city's college entrance exam. With excellent results, you entered the National University of Science and Technology, majoring in biological science. You are destined to become a famous scientist. The Life Lantern gem is taking shape. You have obtained 500 movement points. Seeing the notification and reward, Lin Qiye was shocked. 500 movement points? That was a huge sum. In addition to the reward he got for changing his fate previously, it was 1,050 movement points. 1,050 movement points were enough for Lin Qiye to deduce many times. If used properly, it might not be impossible to change fate. Thinking of this, Lin Qiye was extremely excited. To all galaxy practitioners, movement points were precious items. It could be used to buy treasures in the main world. But to Lin Qiye, movement points were even more precious. After all, movement points were consumable items for the deduction of Genesis. The more movement points he spent, the more heaven-defying the deduction would be. For example, to deduce an entire plan to cure cancer in one's body, one would need a total of 10,000 movement points. Those points would normally require a person to simulate his life more than 10 times before he could accumulate enough points. Lin Qiye had only experienced his second simulation. He had failed the first time, so he would not be able to come up with enough points. He could only follow the plan that he had deduced. He would first become the country's leader in scientific research, and then he would use the entire country's strength to cure the incurable disease. It was the best plan at the moment. However, Lin Qiye, who had 1,050 movement points, had a premonition. The probability of him conquering the incurable disease had inexplicably increased. Lin Qiye let out a long sigh. Next, school violence, dropping out of school, my parents dying, my relatives snatching away my property, and wandering on the streets shouldn't happen anymore. These are all points that defy the heavens and change fate. However, my lifespan is short. I only have 12 years left. I have to become a leader as soon as possible and have the power to mobilize the country's research forces. If I want to become a leader, I have to be a biological science major and research to the top of the world. I even have to master cancer and oncology. Lin Qiye's goal was grand. To defy the heavens and change his fate. To break through the limits of this simulated life. To become a true galaxy practitioner. The 5-year-old Lin Qiye picked up university textbooks, concentrated, and began to self-study. 1 year. Lin Qiye finished studying the first and second year materials by himself. The reason why he spent 1 year was that every time Lin Qiye encountered a knowledge framework, he would surf online to find relevant papers and scientific research results. He would then ponder, study, and thoroughly understand them. Therefore, Lin Qiye's study pattern for this year was exaggerated. He first read the first and second year textbooks and searched every term he did not understand. Then, he read the textbooks again and added his own opinions. If the expanded content of each textbook was written into a book, it would become a 2-meter-high wall. From this, one could see how exaggerated it was. And such a crazy learning method also gave Lin Qiye a big surprise. At this moment, Lin Qiye once again used the deduction of Genesis. He was able to simulate the entire process of a first-class thesis experiment in his mind, and there was not a single error. What was even more ridiculous was that he only needed to consume 50 movement points. Based on this, Lin Qiye discovered a rule. First, the more relevant knowledge he had, the more precise the deduction of Genesis would be. Second, the deeper he understood the relevant knowledge, the fewer movement points the deduction of Genesis would consume. For example, Lin Qiye needed to deduce a method to cure a terminal disease, and it would only cost him 9,500 movement points now. There was a decrease of 500 movement points. It was a good thing. Lin Qiye was excited. He knew that his efforts had paid off. If he continued to research the technology of this world, then before the age of 18, he might really be able to deduce the perfect treatment plan. Lin Qiye smiled. He laughed heartily. He saw hope. He had a clear direction to strive for, and he had more motivation to work hard. In the following year, Lin Qiye used the same study method and thoroughly digested the teaching materials of his 3rd and 4th years. In 2 years, he had mastered all the knowledge from his university materials. However, Lin Qiye did not graduate from university. He still needed to hand in a graduation thesis. Entering the 3rd year of university, Lin Qiye was 8 years old. He applied for a graduation project from his tutor. In the following period, Lin Qiye spent every day in the university's biological laboratory, doing his own research. 4 months later, Lin Qiye finished his university graduation thesis. The title of the thesis was How Intestinal Microbiota May Influence the Host's Response to Cancer Treatment Through the Immune System. The whole paper was 67 pages long. There were 300 groups of experimental controls, and the research was detailed. The conclusion was also accurate. Intestinal microflora could regulate the host's immune system, thus affecting the development, metastasis, and treatment of tumors. The paper was completed. Lin Qiye also applied for intellectual property protection for the paper. Then, he handed the thesis over to his professor, Yuan Peng. Professor Yuan took the thesis and flipped it over and over again, but he couldn't find anything that needed to be amended. Professor Yuan was shocked. His mouth hung open. Genius. He's really a genius. Any top-tier scientific journal in the country will have to give this thesis a cover page. Even in the world's most reputable biological journals, it will occupy the majority of the space. Are you really 8 years old? Professor Yuan was a little confused. This thesis was written by an 8-year-old? He was invincible? Professor Yuan himself was a genius. At the age of 14, he was admitted into the youth class of the National University of Science and Technology. At 24, he graduated from an Ivy League university in country Dang. After returning for 10 years, he was already a professor at the country's best university for scientific research. However, Lin Qiye, an 8-year-old child, had thoroughly outshined him. Professor Yuan was struck by the blow and sighed deeply. It's because I'm old. Young people nowadays are freakish. Go back first. I'll submit your thesis. You just need to wait for the good news from the journal. I can predict that as long as you continue to do research, you will definitely be the leader in the field of biotechnology in the future. Professor Yuan, who had always been serious, suddenly smiled brightly and patted Lin Qiye's shoulder with a red face. Child, are you willing to follow me? I will open a back door for you, and I promise you that I will create the best research conditions for you, as long as you remember your teacher in the future. Lin Qiye nodded in agreement. I think you're great, teacher. I'm willing to study under you. Lin Qiye had never thought of leaving the National University of Science and Technology. After all, the biological science specialty and laboratory of the National University of Science and Technology were among the best in the world. Other places might not have such an excellent scientific research environment. Hearing Lin Qiye's answer, Professor Yuan's face was full of smiles. Good, good. It's my honor to have such an excellent student like you. Professor Yuan liked Lin Qiye, and his adoration was overflowing. If Lin Qiye was not only 8 years old, he would have dragged him to drink a few cups of celebratory wine. However, Lin Qiye was still underage. He could only rub Lin Qiye's head. At the side, Mother Lin was dumbfounded. What was the concept of a scientific leader in the field? It's equivalent to a national treasure? And her son had such terrifying potential? Mother Lin was so excited that her heart was about to jump out of her chest. On the contrary, Lin Qiye appeared indifferent and even a little aloof. Professor Yuan, I'll go back first. Professor Yuan nodded and sent Lin Qiye to the school gate with a smile. On the way, many professors were surprised. Professor Yuan was famous for his low emotional intelligence in the university. Even if the principal went to look for him, he would give him the cold shoulder. Today, he sent someone to the school gate with a smile. Could it be that the sun has risen from the west? Many professors couldn't help but whisper. Of course, these were just small interludes. A month later, Lin Qiye's thesis was published in the country's most famous biology journal, causing a sensation in the circle. At the same time, the thesis was introduced in 3,000 words by the world's best biology journal. He received the best treatment. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Naturally, Lin Qiye had his first representative thesis. A week later, Professor Yuan finished the formalities for Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye became his PhD student. His advanced studies began. The most profound knowledge in the entire field of biological science was finally spread out in front of Lin Qiye. Chapter 6. The top leaders all wanted to collab with Lin Qiye in scientific research. Lin Qiye knew that comprehending this large amount of profound knowledge was extremely beneficial to the deduction of Genesis. It could greatly increase the probability of conquering a terminal illness and allow him to defy the heavens and change his fate. Hence, Lin Qiye immersed himself in profound knowledge without remembering the time to eat or sleep. The pleasure of climbing the peak of science made his adrenaline and dopamine secrete rapidly. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. It was the spring festival. Mother Lin gently knocked on the door. Good boy, it's the new year. We should take a break today. Hearing the call, Lin Qiye put down the information given by Professor Yuan and walked out of the room with a stretch. On the table in the living room was a table full of sumptuous New Year's Eve meals. Happy New Year, good boy. You are 9 years old. Lin Qiye's parents congratulated him. I hope our little Qiye can be healthy and happy for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Lin Qiye was stunned, and his heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. 9 years old? It was a special time period. If he had drunk the poisonous milk powder, he would now be a deformed baby who had just entered kindergarten. A mentally retarded child. He was glad that he had changed his fate. The current Lin Qiye was a doctoral student. He was an elite student whose thesis had appeared on the cover of top-tier journals in the country. Life is really full of emotions. Lin Qiye looked out of the window, where the sky was booming with fireworks. A mature and emotional expression that did not belong to his age appeared on his young face. However, Lin Qiye hid his emotions almost instantly. He turned around and happily enjoyed the New Year's Eve dinner with his parents. The sky was booming with fireworks outside the window. A clear and melodious sound of a notification rang in Lin Qiye's mind amidst the bright fireworks. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 6 years old. You entered university and finished your first and second year studies at home. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 7 years old. You completed your third and fourth year studies at home. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 8 years old. Your graduation thesis stunned your tutor. The tutor is fond of you and specially recruited you to become a PhD student. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 9 years old. You are studying for your doctorate certificate. Your future is bright. The Life Lantern gem is 2/3% completed. You have obtained 1000 movement points. Looking at the generous reward, Lin Qiye was pleasantly surprised. I got 1000 movement points. Now, my movement points have reached 2,000, although it's a little far from 9,500 points. But if I rely on the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom Card to specialize in the fields of cancer and biological science, and master the world's top-notch relevant knowledge, I might only need 5,000 movement points to deduce a plan. Lin Qiye secretly clenched his fists. There were only 9 years left before the incurable disease broke out when he was 18. In 9 years, the outcome was uncertain. He had to change his fate? Oh, I should check my physical condition first. I can't have any accidents when it comes to my health. If something else happens to my body, it will be a big problem. Lin Qiye was as cautious as ever. He casually used up 10 movement points and activated the Deduction of Genesis. This deduction used up 10 movement points, 1,990 movement points remaining. The result of the deduction: your body is currently healthy. Only the genes of congenital acute diseases are hidden in your bone marrow. The disease genes will suddenly erupt when you reach adulthood at 18. All right, there's no problem with my body. The terminal disease is the ultimate challenge. Lin Qiye shook his head and let out a deep breath. He looked at the 2 papers that were quietly placed on the desk. Next, I want to become the leader of the cancer field and become famous in country Xia. Only then can I mobilize the strength of the country to tackle and research terminal illnesses. I can gather the top scientific research forces in the country and even the world to help me prolong my life. Lin Qiye's plan was clear. To achieve his goal as soon as possible, on the first day after the Spring Festival, Lin Qiye took his thesis and came to Professor Yuan's laboratory. Mother Lin accompanied him. Professor Yuan was stunned. You've only been a PhD student for 3 months, and you've already written 2 theses. Lin Qiye's expression was indifferent and cold. I already had an idea in the past. I only need to verify it. Please take a look at the quality, Professor. Professor Yuan nodded and opened the first page. Experimental demonstration, whether the consumption of metabolites has anti-tumor effects. Below it was the abstract. Through the above multiple controlled experiments, it was known that p53 deficient cells were sensitive to serine consumption. Therefore, it was proven that through dietary changes or pharmacological methods, removing such amino acids had the potential to treat p53 deficient tumors. Professor Yuan turned to the first page and began to teach Lin Qiye his life experience. Actually, with your talent, the number of theses is not important. You should focus on quality. Halfway through his sentence, Professor Yuan obediently shut his mouth. His eyes shone as he concentrated on analyzing the experimental process, the methods of analysis, and the conclusions. He was stunned. The idea of this thesis is too creative. It provides a brand new idea for cancer treatment. You can even use this thesis to win an international heavyweight award in the medicinal field. Professor Yuan spoke quickly. He seemed excited. If the content of the thesis was true, Lin Qiye would become famous in the field of biological science. He was only 9 years old. What kind of concept was it for him to be famous in the biological science field? It could only be said that he was a rare genius. It was too terrifying. However, Professor Yuan had some doubts. Can the experiment in the paper be repeated? Lin Qiye said resolutely, it can be repeated. It can be repeated 1,000 times, even 10,000 times. Professor Yuan took a deep breath before looking at the second paper. There was a long silence. He felt numb. It was still a top-tier academic journal, a cover-level thesis. Lin Qiye was only 9 years old. How could he be so smart? Professor Yuan's expression was complicated, mixed with excitement and frustration. I can only say that you were born for scientific research. I will help you submit it to an international journal. Wait for the good news. You can tell me whatever you want. In just over a year, 3 top-rated papers in the field were enough for Professor Yuan to use all his resources to support Lin Qiye. After all, each paper was ridiculously valuable, and he could more or less benefit from it. He had picked up a treasure. Professor Yuan was overjoyed. He busied himself to submit the theses for Lin Qiye. Thus, at 9 years old, Lin Qiye's papers caused a stir in the field of biotechnology. The international academic community called him the prince of the biotechnology field. With time, there would be no limit on his potential. The local media was in an uproar. For a time, comments about the godly prodigy talent had appeared in the newspapers. But all of this had nothing to do with Lin Qiye. He didn't care. He still maintained his lifestyle and tried his best to explore the frontier of biotechnology. The only thing he cared about in the outside world was the new papers from reputable journals. He would read every newly published journal more than a dozen times. All of these could broaden Lin Qiye's depth of thought. Of course, there were also mistakes and points worth supplementing in many of the papers. Every now and then, Lin Qiye would send an email to the author of the paper, listing his ideas in detail. Usually, after only 1 or 2 days, the author would write back to thank him in excitement. After exchanging ideas, Lin Qiye made friends with all the famous professors in biotechnology. Even the Nobel Prize winner and Lasker Prize winner in clinical medicine were among his good friends. All the big shots in the field of biological science wanted to work with Lin Qiye. If they had any new ideas, they would send an email to Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye's improvement was even faster. When he was 10 years old, he only needed 8,500 movement points to deduce a complete plan to overcome the terminal illness. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. It was a huge improvement. Although he still needed 6,500 movement points to defy the heavens and change his fate, hope was right in front of him. Only 8 years left. Lin Qiye felt the urgency of time. I need to work harder. Chapter 7, 2 years left. Lin Qiye knew that he could not lower his guard. If he did not make it past the age of 18, everything would turn into a bubble. Even if he had cleverly avoided the contaminated milk powder when he was 2 years old, and even if he had become a doctoral student at 10, he still had not completed the task of breaking through the limit. If he did not make it past the age of 18, it would not be considered a success. Therefore, Lin Qiye spent a year mastering all the knowledge about life science in this world. Then, he began to aim at topics that were untouched for decades and centuries. After seeing the topics that Lin Qiye chose, Professor Yuan's face was full of lingering fear. Lin Qiye, don't aim too high. You're only 10 years old, and you don't need to specifically aim at special topics. I'm afraid that you'll suffer setbacks and be unable to recover. Professor Yuan earnestly persuaded him. He felt that Lin Qiye had taken too big a step. Why would a top scientist rush into a problem that couldn't be solved in decades or even centuries? If he failed, he would be beyond redemption. However, Lin Qiye's gaze was firm. I can study it. I want to try. Professor Yuan saw Lin Qiye's determined expression that didn't care about himself. He was touched and patted Lin Qiye's shoulder. The way you did everything for science reminded me of Copernicus, who risked his life. You are a pure seeker of knowledge. I saw the light in your eyes, and I saw your pure heart. Professor Yuan's voice was choked with sobs. He took off his glasses and wiped the mist on them. As he wiped, he sighed, You are my best student. I wish you the best. Even if you encounter setbacks, you must be more open-minded. Don't be depressed. You must remember that scientific research is like God rolling the dice. Don't get into a dead end. Professor Yuan entrusted every word to Lin Qiye. He had long treated Lin Qiye as his own son and advised him earnestly. Lin Qiye was moved. He hugged Professor Yuan tightly and immediately dived into the topic where there was no return. Just as Lin Qiye expected, the problem that had troubled mankind for decades was extraordinarily difficult. Even though he was blessed with the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom Card, he still felt a little strenuous, as if he was walking in a quagmire. However, Lin Qiye had his advantages. Even if his deduction of Genesis skill was not activated, it could give him a kind of intuition. Relying on his amazing intuition, Lin Qiye was able to grasp a breakthrough and overcome the difficulties repeatedly. In just a short year, Lin Qiye published 5 milestone papers. 2 of them were selected for the top science journal. The 5 top-notch papers made Lin Qiye's status in country Xia soar. Professor Yuan was brimming with tears of relief as he allowed Lin Qiye to graduate. At the same time, he was hired as a professor by the National University of Science and Technology. With Professor Yuan's help, Lin Qiye had his own laboratory and could recruit a laboratory assistant. In the next 5 years, Lin Qiye was exceptionally diligent and produced 5 milestone papers every year. There were also countless other papers. Even Lin Qiye's research friends often credited his name because of the accuracy and effectiveness of Lin Qiye's suggestions. Lin Qiye became a thesis maniac and a legend in the industry. His fame began to rise. A popular article became an instant hit on the internet. The things you don't know about the child prodigy of country Xia, Lin Qiye. In the 20 breakthroughs of cancer research in the past century, he took up 12 of them, a real cancer killer. The article listed Lin Qiye's achievements in detail. Lin Qiye's heaven-defying achievements were vividly described in simple and easy-to-understand strokes. At the end of the article, it was even confidently claimed that Lin Qiye would lead mankind to conquer cancer. Cancer would forever become a common disease. It was the Nobel Prize's honor to award Lin Qiye, not Lin Qiye's honor. The article was trending on many platforms. It caused a heated discussion among millions of netizens. I'm a professional. Lin Qiye is really heaven-defying. He's the kind of person with unrivaled scientific research ability. I'm neither bragging nor slandering. Lin Qiye is a contemporary legend in the field of life science. What's even scarier is that he's only 15 years old. Ha ha ha, he is our senior. I met him in front of his laboratory. He's 15 years old and 1.8 meters tall. He's handsome, talented, and unrivaled. I wanted to be his laboratory assistant, but my standard wasn't good enough. I failed in my application. TCH, it's just the local news bragging about him. If he's so amazing, why didn't he get international recognition? Didn't he get any awards? Indeed. In fact, Lin Qiye's research must not be worth mentioning, but he bragged that he was the best in the world. I'm laughing my head off. You guys are 100 years behind. It's useless. You guys are bragging so much, but why isn't the cost of treatment decreasing? You might as well take money to treat the common people first. When the article blew up, a strange breed appeared on the internet. They thought that insignificant flies could slander warriors. Little did they know that Lin Qiye did not care about the commotion in the outside world. His goal was always the same, to cure the incurable disease in his body. The time left for him was getting lesser and lesser. It was the beginning of spring when he was 16. In the laboratory, Lin Qiye raised his head and looked at the trees that had exploded with green shoots below the laboratory. He let out a light sigh. Outside the laboratory door, Lin Qiye's parents' faces were flushed red. They were so excited that they shouted like a madman. "Son, something big has happened? Something big has happened to you." Lin Qiye was speechless. He opened the laboratory door and stretched his back. He looked at his parents standing outside the door and the exceptionally excited Professor Yuan. "What is it?" Mother Lin grabbed Lin Qiye's arm. "Son, you have won the Lasker Clinical Medicine Award. The organizers have invited you to receive the award overseas. This is the highest level award in the field of life sciences." It was a preview of the Nobel Prize. Winning this award means that you have a 90% chance of winning the Nobel Prize. Lin Qiye's heart did not waver. He waved his hand and rejected, "I don't have the time. I won't go." Professor Yuan was shocked. "How can you not go and receive the award? I've been dreaming about it. Hurry up and get ready to receive the award." Lin Qiye's face was cold. "I'm not interested. I'd rather do experiments." He refused righteously. After learning that Lin Qiye was too lazy to accept the award, all the professors at the National University of Science and Technology sighed. They wished that they could become Lin Qiye to accept the award. The university leaders even invited Lin Qiye to accept the award time and time again. Unfortunately, Lin Qiye's attitude was firm. One came and one went. However, although Lin Qiye did not accept the award was still given to him. The judges all knew that Lin Qiye did not need the Lasker Clinical Medicine Award to prove his worth. However, the award needed Lin Qiye to prove its worth. After all, Lin Qiye's scientific research results were truly heaven-defying. Lin Qiye ignored the Lasker Clinical Medicine Award, but the award still treated him like a first love. Many netizens drew what happened into an anthropomorphic picture. In the picture, the humanized Lasker Clinical Medicine Award was wrapped in white silk. It hugged Lin Qiye's arm tightly but was pushed away. The netizens burst into laughter, and the sketch spread on all platforms. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. However, while the happiness belonged to the netizens, Lin Qiye was a little nervous. "I'm 16 years old. Will the outbreak of terminal illness be far away? I've been sharpening my sword for 10 years. It's time to take it out and utilize it." Lin Qiye took a deep breath. At this moment, the warning notification that he had not heard for 7 years finally sounded in Lin Qiye's mind. Chapter 8, Terminal Disease Detected. 7 months left to live. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 10 years old. You published 3 top-tier papers, and your reputation shot up. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 11 years old. You began to tackle difficult human problems. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 12 years old. You graduated with a doctorate and stayed to become a professor at the National University of Science and Technology. You have your high-precision laboratory. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 13 years old. You published 5 milestone scientific research papers. At the same time, you used your spare time to set up a short video industry in advance. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 14 years old. You are still prolific. You have become an authority in the professional field. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 15 years old. You have obtained 183 patents related to cancer treatment. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate. 16 years old. You are one step closer to curing cancer. However, you are still a distance away from completely curing it. The Life Lantern gem is forming. You have obtained 2,000 movement points. 2,000 movement points? Including the previous 2,000, it's a total of 4,000 points. But the deduction of Genesis requires 5,000 movement points to fully deduce the solution to my terminal disease. I'm missing 1,000 points. Movement points are really scarce. I've already changed my fate so much, but I only got 5,000 points, of which 1,000 points were used up in the deduction when I was 2 years old. What a pity. Lin Qiye smiled and shook his head. Although he had lost 1,000 movement points, he was already mentally prepared. I can't completely cure the terminal disease in my body, but I can rely on the knowledge I obtained to extend my life. As long as I don't die, I'll be considered successful if I can survive past 18. With the support of 4,000 movement points, I definitely won't die by then. This was the plan Lin Qiye had deduced from the start. He could not completely cure the disease, but he could think of ways to try his best to prolong his life. As long as he was careful, no major accidents would happen. Lin Qiye would be able to prolong his life until he was 18. It was the reason why Lin Qiye had been working hard since he was 2 years old. He did not rest until he was 16. Knowledge changed fate. Lin Qiye, who was full of confidence, continued to work after exercising for 10 minutes. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed. The new semester began. At the National University of Science and Technology, all the faculty and staff were arranged to undergo a comprehensive physical examination. 1 day later, the physical examination report was released. The doctors were shocked. They ran to report to Professor Yuan, who had become the dean of the biology department. Professor Yuan's face turned pale with fright. It must be a mistake. It must be a mistake. Do another checkup. No matter what, Professor Yuan could not believe it. He led a team and dragged Lin Qiye from his laboratory to the hospital for a second checkup. Unfortunately, the results of the second checkup were the same as the first one. The doctor held the examination report and said with a trembling voice, "Professor Lin's disease is unprecedented. It's the first case in the world. It is a sporadic and acute outbreak of bone marrow type cancer. It cannot be cured completely. Even controlling it is impossible. Moreover, bone marrow cells are malignant diseases at the genetic level. It is estimated that after 9 months, the cancer cells will spread at full speed." After listening to the doctor's words, Professor Yuan's face turned ashen. How can this be? He is only 16 years old. He was still alive and kicking a while ago. How can he have such an incurable disease? Professor Yuan almost could not breathe. Lin Qiye was the child he watched grow up, and he was a scientist with a bright future. How could he have a terminal illness? Moreover, it was a global isolated case, a terminal illness that could not be cured. Were the heavens jealous of talented people? Professor Yuan's eyes darkened. Sensing Professor Yuan's dejected mood, Lin Qiye patted his back and smiled optimistically. "Doctor, it seems that this illness can be named after me." Hearing that, the doctor and Professor Yuan opened their mouths and looked at Lin Qiye, who was still joking at this moment, in surprise. However, they saw that Lin Qiye's eyes were bright and determined, extremely penetrating. How pure and innocent must he be for his eyes to be so bright? Professor Yuan was deeply touched. He forced a smile and said, "Child, you are a master in the field of cancer research. You can save yourself, right?" Lin Qiye looked calm. "Yes, I can save myself. It's just a terminal illness." Lin Qiye acted free and easy. Professor Yuan was not so open-minded. His eyes were moist, and he was holding in a sullen pain. That night, Lin Qiye's parents learned that he was suffering from a terminal illness. The two of them sat in the bedroom in a daze and cried silently for a few hours. Only then did they dare to open Lin Qiye's bedroom door. "Son, I don't understand your research, but I heard that you're a genius who can conquer cancer. Is that right? Can you save yourself? You can definitely save yourself, right? Please, my son, you're so talented. Please save yourself." Mother Lin hugged Lin Qiye and was heartbroken. The feeling of the blood being thicker than water made Lin Qiye's nose ache. "Mom, I'll be fine. Trust me, don't cry." Mother Lin reached out and wiped her tears. "Mom trusts you. When you were young, you vomited after drinking poisonous milk powder. You're so smart. You're special. You're someone who survived a great disaster and will have good fortune. You'll definitely be able to save yourself." Lin Qiye nodded seriously. He patiently calmed his mother's emotions. Then, he returned to his bedroom. Once he returned, Lin Qiye started the deduction of Genesis and checked his physical condition. This deduction requires 100 movement points, currently remaining 4,000 movement points. Deduction successful. The current bone marrow progenitor cell disease has already started. It will start to spread in 2 months, reach climax in 5 months, and you will die in 7 months. Deduce a plan for me to extend 2 years of life. This deduction requires 100 movement points, currently remaining 3,900 movement points. Lin Qiye was dumbfounded. How could it only require 100 movement points? That's impossible, right? Lin Qiye quickly looked at the deduction results. Deduction successful. The method is available from your published paper. Is it feasible to combine acupuncture and electrochemistry technology? Using the techniques mentioned, you can suppress the outbreak of terminal illness. After reading the deduction results, Lin Qiye was stunned on the spot. This paper was proposed by his laboratory's PhD assistant, Qin Xia, a year ago. Qin Xia felt that traditional Chinese medicine could shine in modern science, so he came up with a sudden idea and applied for a project with Lin Qiye. Such a project was absurd, and Qin Xia was ready to be scolded. But in the end, Lin Qiye's intuition told him that the project could be done. Therefore, Lin Qiye didn't reprimand Qin Xia. After thinking about it for a week, he gave a preliminary suggestion and guidance instead. Qin Xia was pleasantly surprised. With passion, he studied for more than a year. During this period, Lin Qiye guided him more than 150 times and finally completed the thesis. It was the first thesis that combined acupuncture and electrochemistry technology. The controlled generation of hydrogen in the tumor region during the electrolysis process of acupuncture electrodes was successfully achieved using the acidic microenvironment of tumor tissue and the precise puncture of acupuncture electrodes. It was done under the safe, low-pressure condition of healthy tissue. Thus, the tumor's growth was effectively suppressed and would die out quickly. This method was a minimally innovative technique created by Lin Qiye's combined therapy. It was relatively simple and safe to operate and did not require drugs, nanomaterials, or high-precision instruments. The therapeutic effect was preliminarily verified using a lab rat, which realized the minimally innovative treatment of glioma and breast cancer in mice. Recalling the contents of the paper, the corners of Lin Qiye's mouth could not help but curl up into a slight smile. Good guy. It was the most suitable life-prolonging plan for him because the cancer cells in his body were hidden deep in his bone marrow. Therefore, whether it was the combination therapy, the target cell attack, or the T-cell modification and attack, these treatments would not cure the root cause. Rashly using these methods was equivalent to treating his body as a battlefield. Before the terminal disease was eliminated, Lin Qiye's body would be riddled with holes and eliminated one step ahead. As for acupuncture and electrochemotherapy, it was green and safe, using as little medicine as possible. After a series of analyses in his mind, Lin Qiye could not help but let out a deep breath. As expected, God helps those who help themselves. I have worked hard for 12 years and finally found a way to break through the limits of life. It's not easy. I have changed such a life with so many disasters and no glimmer of hope. I am destined not to fail. Lin Qiye was determined to achieve his goal. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. He did not dare to fail because failure would prevent him from creating the life lantern gem. He would become a childbearing machine. His life would be dead silent. And now, he was one step away from success. Just one step away. Chapter 9, Fighting a Terminal Illness. On the second day after he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, Lin Qiye came to his laboratory as usual. The news spread quickly. The entire laboratory knew that Lin Qiye had a terminal illness. The students pursed their lips, their eyes dull, and the pressure was very low. Lin Qiye was a good professor and a good teacher. As long as his student chose a topic, he could guide them 100 times until they completely understood the experiment and obtained the scientific research results. He was the most popular doctoral advisor in the entire National University of Science and Technology. The students fought to be assistants. His classroom was packed with people, and even the aisles were filled with students. However, Professor Lin, who was so outstanding and charming and only 17 years old, suffered from a fatal disease as the first case in the world. The students in the laboratory looked at Lin Qiye with dull eyes. Their hearts ached, they felt uncomfortable, and their eyes were red. Professor. Professor. Qin Xia pursed his lips and gritted his teeth. Lin Qiye raised his eyebrows. Do what you have to do. I won't die easily. It's just a terminal illness. By the way, Qin Xia, your acupuncture electrochemotherapy paper is quite useful. Lin Qiye praised him and found Qin Xia's paper in the information cabinet. If this technique is used properly, it can control the disease cells in my bone marrow. Once a day, and I will be healthy. Lin Qiye smiled. He began to design a treatment plan. According to the deduction, he needed to find an experienced Chinese medicine doctor familiar with acupoints. He would first perform acupuncture on every acupointment in his body. Next, he would use the electrodes on the tip of the needle to microelectrolyze hydrogen gas. Finally, he would use live hydrogen gas to treat the disease. The process was green and safe. Although it could not completely cure the symptoms, it could prolong the transition of his terminal illness to the middle and late stages. In other words, it could prolong his life. With this in mind, Lin Qiye was thinking at a high speed as he entered the plan into the document. Behind him, Professor Yuan stood quietly for a long time. Seeing that Lin Qiye was done, Professor Yuan rubbed his head. Then, he held a bank card and stuffed it into Lin Qiye's hand with utmost care. He was forceful and could not be refused. Child, treating a terminal illness requires a lot of money. I sold my house for 6 million yuan. Take it and treat your illness. Lin Qiye was stunned on the spot and momentarily forgot what to say. Professor Yuan was already 43 years old. In this era of soaring house prices, he sold his house without hesitation in exchange for money to treat his student's illness. He treated Lin Qiye as his own son. Such pure and honest feelings? Tears welled up in the corners of Lin Qiye's eyes. Professor, there's no need. I have money. You spend every day in the laboratory. How much money can you have? Take it. Professor Yuan berated him, and his fist tightened. Lin Qiye understood that he had to convince Professor Yuan. Otherwise, he had to take the 6 million that Professor Yuan had gained from selling his house. Lin Qiye was so touched that his nose felt sore. Professor, I really don't lack money. 3 years ago, I casually set up a new industry and earned some money. It's not much, about 2,000 billion to 3,000 billion. As he spoke, Lin Qiye opened an electronic file and showed Professor Yuan the ownership structure of the most popular short video app in the country. Lin Qiye had 72% of the shares. He was in charge of the entire group. The others could only make suggestions or execute plans. Professor Yuan was shocked. His surprised gaze swept over Lin Qiye as if he was meeting him for the first time. You made a little money of 2,000 billion. Lin Qiye nodded slightly. Yes, I can withdraw 2,000 billion at any time, so, even if I spend 100 billion a year on treatment, I can still last for 20 years. Moreover, I can earn another 2,000 billion. Lin Qiye said casually and handed the bank card back to Professor Yuan with some reproach in his tone. I've already told you to have confidence in me, but you, forget it. I'll buy you a villa after a while. Hearing that, Professor Yuan opened his mouth and held the bank card. He felt sad and gratified. Child, you'll definitely get better. You must get better. Lin Qiye stroked Professor Yuan's back. Relax. Go to class quickly. Professor Yuan heaved a sigh of relief and then left the laboratory. After seeing Professor Yuan off, Lin Qiye immediately called his family. Don't sell the house. I've earned 2,000 billion to treat my disease, so don't do anything rash. His parents looked at each other. They temporarily put their plan to sell the house on hold, which they were still discussing earlier. Good boy, where did you get 2,000 billion? Lin Qiye said, if you don't believe me, I'll come back tonight to verify it for you. You can also call Professor Yuan to ask for confirmation. In short, don't sell the house. Lin Qiye warned resolutely. His parents nodded. Son, we believe you. We won't sell the house for the time being. We'll sell it when we're short of money. Hearing that, Lin Qiye heaved a sigh of relief. In the next 3 days, Lin Qiye began to implement the treatment plan for himself. First, the electroacupuncture treatment was used to kill the cancer cells. Second, through the precise adjustment of diet, he changed his intestinal bacterial flora so that it could limit the speed of the outbreak of incurable diseases in his body to the maximum level. The method was taken from Lin Qiye's thesis. Thirdly, according to the P53 defective tumor serine treatment ideas, Lin Qiye tried to find an active substance to suppress the formation of incurable diseases in his body. It was a multi-pronged approach, a full-scale pursuit and interception of the terminal illness. A week later, in Lin Qiye's custom-made private sanatorium, on the treatment bed, Lin Qiye stripped naked, his body full of thin silver needles. Even his finger joints were pierced with silver needles. Each silver needle accurately pierced into the key acupoints near the bone marrow. The medical staff was a little nervous. They carefully operated the microinvasive electrolyzer and began the process. Lin Qiye's entire body was numb and swollen. It was as if someone had brushed his sensitive parts with a goose feather, making him itchy and uncomfortable. However, as the electrolysis proceeded, Lin Qiye's body became comfortable and even a little drowsy. 2 hours later, the first electroacupuncture treatment was completed. The CT scan showed that all the diseased cells near Lin Qiye's bone marrow had been removed, and it was temporarily impossible for it to spread to his entire body. The doctor was excited. Professor Lin, it's effective. It's really effective. Although it's not a radical cure, it stops the cells from spreading to other body parts. As long as it continues to be suppressed, it might never erupt. You are indeed the legendary man who will lead mankind to conquer cancer. The doctor's face was filled with astonishment. Lin Qiye put on his clothes. He let out a long sigh. I don't feel any negative effects for the time being, but I estimate that at the later stage, the faster the pathological cells will replicate. When that time comes, it might not be easy to deal with. Moreover, the pathological cells will absorb my nutrients and continue to replicate. So every treatment is equivalent to cutting a piece of meat off my body. I need to supplement my nutrients scientifically. Otherwise, I won't be able to last long. Lin Qiye did not underestimate his enemy. Instead, he quickly perfected the life-prolonging plan based on the first treatment. Thus, 2 months later, when Lin Qiye had another checkup, Although the condition of the bone marrow had worsened, there were no diseased cells in the blood and other tissues. 5 months after the diagnosis, the rate of proliferation of the cells in the bone marrow had increased. Lin Qiye's condition should have fallen into an avalanche. However, it was still under control. It was just that the electroacupuncture treatment once a day had slowly started to fail to kill all the cancer cells. It had to be done once in the morning and once in the evening. At the same time, Lin Qiye's intake of nutrition and the consumption of the disease cells gradually equalized. Lin Qiye's body gradually weakened. However, there were only 2 months left before he broke through the limits of his life. Lin Qiye used an intravenous drip as the most direct method to deliver nutrition. However, the diseased cells were indeed malignant tumors. Half of the nutrition delivered every day would be taken away by the diseased cells. The rest of his body could only take the leftovers. Lin Qiye began to lose weight. Bruises also appeared on his skin. Every treatment was extremely painful. The doctors were panicking. What should we do? Professor Lin, the terminal disease in your body is too difficult to deal with. If it were any other cancer, we would be able to control it, but the one in Professor Lin's body is like a fierce tiger. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. The doctors' voices began to tremble. When they reported the situation to Lin Qiye, they were especially anxious. At this moment, there were only 2 months left before he broke through the limits of his life. Lin Qiye let out a deep breath. His eyes were as bright as ever. Don't be afraid. My research institute should have some new results. Chapter 10, Breaking Through the Limits of Life. Starting to create a legend? As expected, after a day, Lin Qiye's research team delivered the results. It was a pill that cost more than 3 billion to develop. The pill was mixed with the bacteria that the research team had selected. It could secrete pheromones that could suppress terminal illnesses. The suppression effect was not heaven-defying, but when combined with diet and immune therapy, Lin Qiye's body condition unexpectedly improved. His face became much ruddier. His strange state gave the doctors a fright, and they almost thought that Lin Qiye had a brief revival before the end. They quickly carried out a full-scale examination of Lin Qiye. The results showed that the rate of proliferation of the diseased cells in Lin Qiye's bone marrow had indeed decreased by 20%. The medical team was shocked as if they had witnessed a medical miracle. However, as time passed, the disease in Lin Qiye's bone marrow multiplied once again. The pill's suppressive effect was far from enough. Lin Qiye's body lost its balance and fell into weakness at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fortunately, Lin Qiye's luck was quite good. The revival effect a while ago gave Lin Qiye enough time to catch his breath. Lin Qiye managed to survive until the time of his death. Lin Qiye, who was supposed to be devoured by the diseased cells, was still alive. As usual, he completed the treatment at night and returned home. He sat in front of his desk and read the first draft of the thesis submitted by the students. Suddenly, Lin Qiye's spirit jolted, and he immediately laughed out loud. His aggressive smile made him look out of character. He was like a monk who had cultivated ascetically for many years and finally achieved a positive result, or like a poor scholar who changed his fate after 10 years of study. I've finally broken through the limits of my life. 18 years? A whole 18 years of hard work? All in exchange for today's heaven-defying fate change. Lin Qiye couldn't help but cry. And in his mind, the sound of the notification became clearer and louder and finally occupied all of Lin Qiye's thoughts. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 16 years old. You have been diagnosed with a terminal illness. It is rare enough to be named after you. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 17 years old. You have fought against your terminal illness. As a master in the field of life sciences, you have found a way to prolong your life. At the same time, you have guided your assistants and published 13 top-tier papers. Successfully defying heavens to change your fate, 18 years old. You are still fighting against the terminal illness in your body. You are still alive. Congratulations! You have broken through the limit of your life. The Life Lantern Gem is permanently formed. Life Lantern Gem, its current energy could support you to enter the galaxy world twice. Every time you fail, the energy will be halved. After breaking through the limit of your life, you will recover half of your energy. If you use up all of it, it will take a year to recover. You can also use special items to recover it. You have obtained 6,000 movement points. Currently remaining 9,450 walking points. You have obtained an upgrade. The score reward will be calculated after your soul returns. Do you wish to return? No. Lin Qiye shook his head in his heart. The knowledge he obtained from school told him that he must not return when he had broken through his limit. He must persevere until the moment of death, because the longer he lasted, the more events he experienced, the higher his score would be, and the more generous the reward. In layman's terms, every day that Lin Qiye lived after this would gain him many benefits. It was even to the extent that if he raised his score to S, Lin Qiye would receive a heaven-defying reward. However, an S grade is especially difficult. Usually, one would have to simulate over 100 times to coincidentally get an S grade. However, I seem to be able to challenge it. Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. His intuition told him that if he could get an S grade during this simulation, it would be great. And one of the prerequisites to get an S grade was to conquer cancer. At this stage, I only need 4,500 movement points to conquer cancer. It's a little expensive, but I might be able to take a gamble. But, even if I conquer cancer, I still can't completely eradicate my incurable disease. Lin Qiye was a little surprised. Looks like my incurable disease is a pain in the ass. Lin Qiye thought deeply for a while. In the end, he still decided to take a gamble. After all, the reward of an S-grade score was too generous. Lin Qiye could not resist the temptation. Hence, after consuming 4,500 movement points, Lin Qiye activated the Deduction of Genesis. The deduction was complicated. It was as if Lin Qiye had entered a galaxy in his head, where countless stars were born and destroyed. A few seconds later, in Lin Qiye's mind, 300 milestone papers appeared. The contents of each paper were imprinted in Lin Qiye's mind. It was as if Lin Qiye had personally done the experiments. With just a thought, he could master all the applications of the principles. Lin Qiye was slightly surprised. He spent half an hour carefully combing through the contents of the papers. Half an hour later, Lin Qiye raised his head. The pleasant surprise in his eyes disappeared in a flash. The combination of the techniques in these papers might not be able to cure my disease completely, but it is enough to allow my body, immunity, and the diseased cells in my bone marrow to reach a miraculous dynamic balance. Even if the diseased cells proliferate at twice the rate, I can still live safely. Lin Qiye was pleasantly surprised. It seems that my intuition is right. I can definitely get an S grade. His eyebrows flew up. If he lived for another 10 years, he would change his fate for 10 years. If he lived for another 20 years, he would change his fate for 20 years. Lin Qiye could not imagine what rewards he could get after spending a whole 20 years earning points. All in all, it must be an unbelievable sum. Lin Qiye laughed until he was gasping for breath. He quickly took a sip of hot tea and then slept soundly. The next day, he formulated a new treatment plan and handed it over to the medical team for implementation. A month later, Lin Qiye's body had indeed reached a kind of subtle dynamic balance. Lin Qiye no longer looked sickly. Instead, his skin became ruddy and full of life. Lin Qiye, who used to pant when he walked, could now walk as fast as the wind. Regarding this outcome, the entire medical team was in a state of shock. Professor Lin, this is amazing. Although the lesions in your bone marrow are multiplying rapidly, the speed of elimination and recovery of your body's functions are also fast. The three of them are maintaining a certain dynamic balance. A medical miracle? This is a medical miracle. The doctors laughed loudly. Lin Qiye also smiled and nodded. You have to congratulate me, don't you? Congratulations? Of course, congratulations. But, Professor Lin, you still have to come for a checkup every day. Lin Qiye nodded and agreed. No problem. While answering, he walked with vigorous steps and arrived at the laboratory that he had not seen for 8 months. In the laboratory, the students saw that Lin Qiye had recovered to his original state. With tears streaming down their faces, they hugged Lin Qiye tightly. Professor, you have recovered, right? Professor, you have overcome a terminal illness. You are indeed the man who will lead mankind to conquer cancer. Let's celebrate Professor Lin's recovery. Yeah, let's give him flowers. The students were extremely excited, and their cheers resounded throughout the entire laboratory. Then, Professor Yuan also received the news. He skipped class at the last minute and rushed over. While running, he lost a shoe. However, he didn't care at all. Instead, he pulled Lin Qiye into his embrace, and the moisture in his eyes blurred his thick glasses. Child, it's been hard on you. Not long after, Lin Qiye's parents also rushed over. The two of them hugged Lin Qiye, crying and laughing as they touched his body to ensure he is healthy. During Lin Qiye's treatment, the bruises on his body made it difficult for them to fall asleep at night. Fortunately, Lin Qiye survived. Lin Qiye's parents teared up, crying from extreme joy. Feeling their sincere emotions, Lin Qiye's nose twitched. I'm fine. I'm alive. I can continue my research. This time, my scientific achievements will definitely be higher, Lin Qiye said proudly. And so, for the next year, Lin Qiye used the money he earned from the short video app to establish 4 high-precision research institutes and recruited nearly 200 researchers. Each researcher had an annual salary of millions. Lin Qiye spent 300 billion a year. He spent all of his money on scientific research, and he didn't ask for anything in return. In just a short year, Lin Qiye had transferred all 300 papers in his mind onto paper. He bombarded the world with tens and hundreds of papers and applied for technology patents one after another. He was also on most of the covers of reputable scientific journals. The big shots in the field were surprised to find that Lin Qiye was creating myths every day since his return. What was even more ridiculous was that without realizing it, the leaders in the global life science and technology field had all come to country Xia for scientific research. For a time, country Xia became the holy land for research in life science and technology. Time passed quickly. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Spring passed, and autumn came. In the blink of an eye, it was Lin Qiye's 19th birthday. The day before his birthday, Lin Qiye, who had always kept a low profile and isolated from the world, suddenly announced in a high profile. The 4 research institutes under him will hold a global press conference. And the theme of the press conference is Chapter 11, At the End of Life, the Spiritual Energy was Restored. The theme consists of 5 short words, and that was, mankind had completely conquered cancer. The short words were decisive and announced that the field of medicine had entered a new era. It was an achievement that could save hundreds of millions of people from suffering. It was also an achievement that could win the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Therefore, after only 10 minutes, the whole world was in an uproar. The official media and the non-governmental media all over the world reported this conference one after another. A genius scientist from country Xia, leading a team at the age of 19, completely conquers cancer. It is necessary for you to learn about the greatest scientist of the current human race. Who is Lin Qiye? What has he achieved? Why is he called a god? We are in the century of life science, and the person who opened the door to this century is called Lin Qiye. Praise him if you are a citizen of country Xia. Our supernova scientist, Lin Qiye, conquers cancer. Shocking news? Lin Qiye had more than 400 pieces of milestone scientific research papers. The father of cancer, the world's strongest expert in the field of life science, Lin Qiye's brilliant life. It was a hot topic. And Lin Qiye's legendary experience was even more exciting. Regardless it was a serious article or people joining in the fun, they all wrote with passion. Every stroke was filled with the word exciting. In particular, Lin Qiye was tall and handsome. His eyes sparkled with light. His appearance made him even more famous globally, and he became the idol of countless people. His popularity kept rising. 3 days later, the press conference was held in the eyes of the public. All kinds of media are gathered. Tens of billions of people were looking forward to it. Lin Qiye was dressed up and stood on the podium. Behind him, a huge display screen illuminated a series of scientific research results. Although the layman couldn't understand it, they could feel how amazing it was just by looking at it. At this moment, everyone held their breaths. As you can see, our 4 research institutes have a total of more than 300 researchers. After a year of hard work, we finally conquered cancer. We have 6,000 patents. Cancer has become a common disease in front of our technology. However, the cost of treatment is still high. In the end, we decided to license the patent to 20 medical institutions. The patent fee is not high, but there is a requirement that each pill can only be priced at 20 yuan. The profit earned from the medical device can only be one-fold. We want all cancer patients in the world to be able to receive treatment. Interested pharmaceutical companies can contact us. Our team will have strict screening processes. The short press conference triggered an even more terrifying effect. Lin Qiye's actions, which were almost like charity, were shocking. On the same day, media reports flooded the internet. Do you know what it means for Lin Qiye to give up the patent profits? 15 million people die of cancer every year in the world. If he holds a patent, Lin Qiye can earn a net profit of 3 trillion a year. If it was 20 years, he could earn 60 trillion, which is equivalent to the GDP of the world's strongest country in a year. A scientist like Lin Qiye is a blessing to all mankind. He is selfless and loving, moving us to tears. Among the countless popular articles that analyzed Lin Qiye's actions financially, a unique article quickly went viral. Professionals in the field stood out to say, in fact, Lin Qiye also suffered from a terminal illness. To treat it, he was pierced with silver needles, which caused bruises all over his body. He had to use 4 bottles to maintain his nutrition. His condition worsened several times. However, the terminal illness did not take him away. He fought against his illness while doing scientific research. He sacrificed himself to benefit mankind. The article depicted the details of Lin Qiye's cancer, Professor Yuan selling his house to treat his student, and Lin Qiye's fight against terminal illness. Obviously, the article was written by an insider. There were no sentimental words used, but it was the truth that made it sincere and touching. The article was very long. However, after reading the first line, it was difficult for one to shift their gaze away. Every subsequent paragraph of the story was so shocking and magnificent. After reading it, the netizens unknowingly burst into tears and sobbed soundlessly. I cried so much. I used up an entire box of toilet paper. But Lin Qiye has never shown a pessimistic expression in front of the public. I finally know what it means to cry uncontrollably. It turns out that after reading Lin Qiye's entire life, my tears fell like a river. Paying tribute to Lin Qiye. Wishing Lin Qiye a speedy recovery. The netizens' sincere comments made the article rise to the top 3 trending searches. Following that, the article was translated into over 100 languages, earning Lin Qiye a lot of tears. However, the protagonist who moved the world turned a deaf ear to what was happening outside the window. Lin Qiye was wholeheartedly devoted to changing his fate. After instructing his assistant's train of thoughts, it was already late at night. Lin Qiye looked at the lush landscape trees outside the window. Deduce how balanced my body is, how long it could last, and how much lifespan I have left. This deduction requires 100 movement points, remaining 4,950 movement points. Deduction successful. Your terminal illness is special. Even if you use a complete set of techniques to conquer cancer, you won't be able to maintain it for too long. Your remaining lifespan is 12 years, and you won't be able to reverse it. After understanding the result of the deduction, Lin Qiye nodded. Does this mean that I can only live until I'm 30 years old? What a short life. However, the extra 12 years are enough to defy the heavens and change my fate many times. In addition to such a major event like conquering cancer, I'll definitely get an S grade, right? Lin Qiye heaved a sigh of relief. However, I can't slack off. I have to go all out. I have to get an S grade reward. Lin Qiye started a new round of struggle. In the next 10 years, Lin Qiye led 4 teams in high-precision laboratories and charged into many fields of biotechnology. AIDS conquered? Nanobots are more convenient and smart now. Genetic engineering theory continues to improve. All the protein molecules were sequenced in the laboratory, and an accurate model was given. Carbon dioxide synthetic starch. Human longevity gene preliminarily analyzed. Human theoretical lifespan reaches 500 years. In 10 years, the life science and technology field has taken more than 10 steps forward. Lin Qiye himself won the Nobel Prize. Even 2 teams in his laboratory won it too. However, Lin Qiye was still unwilling to accept the prize. He was 28 years old. Lin Qiye didn't lack anything. Money, honor, status, they were like a fleeting cloud. A mere Nobel Prize wasn't worth wasting time on. Time flew by. Lin Qiye's 29th birthday arrived in an instant. Lin Qiye's parents, Professor Yuan, the university's laboratory, and his colleagues celebrated his birthday with him. That night, Lin Qiye was in excellent condition. His thoughts and mind were clear. He had a dream. A strange dream. A dream that seemed like an epiphany. In the dream, he realized that thousands of mighty forces could be applied to human genes. This is because there was still a 90% gap in the human gene sequence that had not been utilized. In the thousands of worlds, there were creation genes, reincarnation genes, and mythical genes. If a person could construct a mythical gene, he would be able to let the myth shine into reality. If he could construct a creation gene, he would be able to create a world. However, just as Lin Qiye was about to have deep enlightenment, he suddenly jolted awake. He could only remember a few simple nouns in the content of his dream. For example, the creation genes, reincarnation genes, and mythical genes. Lin Qiye's premonition told him that these 3 nouns were close to the world's essence. Not only was it the essence of the world, but it was also the essence of the main world, the galaxy world. However, Lin Qiye racked his brains, but he still could not recall the specific content of his dream. He was even more unable to understand the 3 nouns that appeared in his mind. Lin Qiye wanted to use the deduction of Genesis, but it was helpless as well. Because the dream content was the result of the deduction of Genesis. It required an epiphany state and a talent for the deduction of Genesis. It depended on his state. No matter how many movement points he consumed, it was useless. Lin Qiye, who had no clue, could only painfully scratch his hair. The next day, Lin Qiye told the laboratory about his dream. However, all the researchers were at a loss. Although Auguste Kekule dreamt of a snake seizing its own tail and constructed a benzene ring structure, Professor Lin, your dream doesn't seem to have any guiding significance. Creation genes, reincarnation genes, and mythical genes? Can't you be more specific? We don't have any research direction on a few metaphysical terms. The researchers shook their heads. Professor Lin, you won't follow in the footsteps of Newton and Einstein and start studying theology, right? The researchers joked. Lin Qiye had a depressed look on his face. He returned to his laboratory and lost himself in thought. Lin Qiye knew very well how heaven-defying the premonitions brought about by his SSS grade deduction of Genesis were. He always believed in his premonitions. Therefore, he wanted to use the following time to study the nature of the world: 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. Lin Qiye's research was worthless. For the first time, Lin Qiye was troubled by a question for more than half a year. The researchers in the laboratory all thought that Lin Qiye was crazy. However, Lin Qiye remained unmoved. He continued to think day and night. When he was more than 29 years old, Lin Qiye recalled a sentence in his dream: thousands of mighty forces could be applied to human genes. The moment he thought of this sentence, in the depths of the ocean, a mysterious black hole suddenly appeared. The black hole spat out a pearl. A thick cloud of fog, which contained abundant energy, quickly spread to the entire world. The fog seemed to accelerate growth, causing the size of the sea creatures to increase rapidly. People saw 100-meter-long cuttlefish and 1,000-meter-long whales in the ocean, and the tigers on land began to grow wings. The global mutation began. Countless small countries and islands perished. Lin Qiye never expected that in the last year of his life, there would be a restoration of spiritual energy. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Under the nourishment of the spiritual energy, the cancer cells in his bone marrow erupted like a volcano. In just a short week, Lin Qiye was pale beyond recognition. Lin Qiye was somewhat stunned. He realized that he didn't have much time left, and his intuition told him that if he wanted to get an S grade in this simulated life process, he had to change another historical event. Chapter 12, Return. 100,000 years after his death, the legend still exists. It was not easy to change an important historical event. After conquering cancer, Lin Qiye had been worrying about it. Unfortunately, even though he had led the researchers to study cancer for 10 years, it was still not enough to form a major historical event. He had never expected that before his death, he encountered a spiritual energy restoration. Everything came to him effortlessly. Lin Qiye still gave a knowing smile. Although he knew that he did not have much time left, he could not hide the joy in his heart. Although I don't know why the spiritual energy restoration suddenly appeared, I'm almost certain that I can obtain an S grade. Lin Qiye happily started the deduction of Genesis. This time, he spent a total of 2,000 movement points to deduce a perfect basic cultivation method, the Qi refinement technique. Qi refinement technique could draw spiritual energy to temper the body, open up the meridians, and cultivate to the 10th level, allowing humans to run amok on Earth. It's enough for humans to gain a foothold in the early stages of spiritual energy restoration. As for the subsequent cultivation methods, our next generation will have their own blessings. I can't help them. Lin Qiye shook his head and chuckled. He used his terrifying influence to announce the Qi refinement technique to the entire country. Lin Qiye's precious announcement immediately triggered a cultivation craze. Within 3 days, hundreds and thousands of people in country Xia claimed to have noticed the traces of spiritual energy flowing in their bodies when they were cultivating. Humans had come into contact with cultivation for the first time. A new era that was destined to be magnificent was slowly beginning. However, it was a pity that the initiator of this new era, Lin Qiye, was on his last breath. At this moment, Lin Qiye was lying on a bed in a private sanatorium. The needles on his body were so crowded that they could make a person with trypophobia faint on the spot. Quick, electrolysis. Carry out the electrolysis. No, the dynamic balance in Professor Lin's body has been destroyed. It's the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. It's over. Professor Lin. Professor Lin. We're really useless? We're trash. The new doctors looked sorrowful. However, Lin Qiye laughed heartily. Haha, why are you blaming yourself? I'm lucky to have lived for 12 more years. As his voice fell, Lin Qiye's heartbeat gradually returned to a straight line without any fluctuations. The greatest scientist of the present generation had forever closed his eyes. Although he had suffered from the tortures of his disease, before his death, Lin Qiye's expression was calm and serene. He had raked in benefits in this world. His life lantern gem had already taken shape. It meant that after Lin Qiye returned to the main world, he would become a true galaxy practitioner. He would be able to walk in the myriad of dimensions and simulate life, obtaining countless benefits. He had completed a leap in his life. There were endless possibilities in the future, and it wasn't necessarily impossible for him to live forever. Lin Qiye didn't have any regrets and left in satisfaction. However, the doctors were immersed in grief. The new doctors were especially crying their hearts out. They were attracted by Lin Qiye's charisma and specially applied to take care of him, but they never expected to see their idol leave the world. They felt as if the world had collapsed, and the universe was destroyed. They squatted at the corner of the wall and cried. Their eyes were red and swollen from all the tears. However, the dead could not be resurrected. Lin Qiye left forever. 10 minutes later, his parents rushed into the sanatorium. Son, you promised me today that you would come back healthy for dinner. I made your favorite braised chicken. Mother Lin covered her mouth with both hands and cried bitterly. My dear son, you have never lied to me. I believe in you. You will come back. Father Lin, who had aged more than 10 years in an instant, cried silently and held Mother Lin's hand tightly. On the other side, in a classroom of the National University of Science and Technology, Professor Yuan, who had learned that his favorite student and half a son had passed away, fainted in the classroom. 20 minutes later, all the scientists in country Xia forwarded an obituary at the same time. Mr. Lin Qiye passed away at the age of 30 due to a terminal illness. We deeply mourn the passing of Mr. Lin Qiye. At the time the obituary was sent out, it started raining in Jiangnan City. The rain was pouring, the clouds were as dark as lead, and the sky was rumbling. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was as if the heavens were mourning Lin Qiye. Half an hour later, in Jiangnan City, over 1 million citizens braved the torrential rain and held a flower to bid farewell to Lin Qiye on the street. The 10-mile-long street was filled with grief. The media started to send out messages to mourn. What a pity! Our country has lost a national treasure. In 30 short years, Lin Qiye had conquered cancer and more than 30 diseases, allowing hundreds of millions of people around the world to be free from the claws of cancer. Before his death, he even created the Qi refinement technique with his sickly body. It's hard to list his thousands of achievements. Mr. Lin Qiye is unparalleled, and his name will live on in our hearts for thousands of years. Country Xia Daily News. Mr. Lin Qiye's death is the most painful loss in the history of mankind. Humans should mourn. Even 10,000 years later, we will still feel pity. World media. The media was full of regret. Lin Qiye's life story was once again spread around the world. He became the most influential celebrity of this century, and with a perfect and flawless image, he became the beacon for young people to strive for. He was young, intelligent, and brilliant. He was heroic and promising. He had a noble character and selfless love. The only regret was that he had never fallen in love. He had devoted his entire life to scientific research and mankind. Even on the eve of his death, he had left a heavy legacy for mankind, the Qi refinement technique. Humans thanked Lin Qiye with admiration, tears, and a 90-degree bow toward Jiangnan City. The humans comprehended the Qi refinement technique with their hearts. From then on, the humans entered the Qi refinement era. 10 years later, in the 10th year of the Qi refinement calendar, the Qi practitioners of country Xia were unprecedentedly strong, killing the mutated beasts on Earth. In the 20th year of the Qi refinement calendar, the genius of country Xia, Qin Zhiro, was the first man to cultivate the Qi refinement technique to the 10th level of perfection. He felt enlightenment and naturally comprehended the next realm, the foundation establishment realm. He followed Lin Qiye's selflessness and added his breakthrough and cultivation method of the foundation establishment realm to the second page of the Qi refinement technique scroll. In the 30th year of the Qi refinement calendar, country Xia had unified the world, and at this time, they were unprecedentedly prosperous. Qi practitioners at the peak of the foundation establishment realm could cross the galaxy with their bodies. However, the best practitioners at the foundation establishment realm discovered that at the end of the universe, there was a dead end. They had touched the barrier of the world. Unfortunately, even the genius Qi practitioner Qin Zhiro was unable to shake the barrier in the slightest. In the 100th year of the Qi refinement calendar, when the strongest practitioner Qin Zhiro was patrolling at the bottom of the ocean, he accidentally discovered a pearl. After swallowing the pearl, Qin Zhiro had stepped into the golden core realm. His lifespan could reach up to 500 years. Qin Zhiro perfected the golden core realm cultivation method and added it to the third page of the Qi refinement technique scroll. In the 200th year of the Qi refinement calendar, Qin Zhiro had reached the peak of the golden core realm, and more than 500 practitioners had entered the golden core realm in country Xia. In the 500th year of the Qi refinement calendar, 6,000 golden core realm practitioners tore a hole in the world barrier. They began to explore the new universe. In the 1000th year of the Qi refinement calendar, Xia universe had completely conquered the new universe, and the two worlds had merged. The planet's universe level had increased from a micro-universe to a small universe. The next day, the leader of the Qi Refinement Alliance sprinkled a handful of yellow soil in front of Lin Qiye's grave, which was located at the center of the new universe. All the Qi practitioners in the Xia universe were in front of Lin Qiye's memorial statue to commemorate him. Before Lin Qiye passed away, he used his last bit of strength to create the spirit of the Qi refinement technique, becoming the guiding light in every practitioner's heart. They would never forget it even after 1,000 years. In the 1200th year of the Qi refinement calendar, Xia universe discovered and conquered many other small planets. It started the Ascension era. In the 50,000th year of the Qi refinement calendar, Xia universe overcame countless worlds and became a large universe in the current time and space. They finally met an evenly matched opponent. From then on, millions of years of mutual struggle began. At the boundary of the two cosmic barriers, country Xia's Qi practitioners swarmed over like locusts. Their swords blotted out the sky, and they rushed toward the human-shaped, muscular army of the godly tiger race. Charge! Wherever the spiritual energy covers, it will be the territory of country Xia. We, the sons and daughters of country Xia, will annihilate all enemies. Conquer the godly tiger universe. We will sprinkle the soil of this universe in front of Elder Lin's grave. This is our ultimate romance that has lasted for 50,000 years. Elder Lin's spirit will forever shine on us as we move forward. Your S+ score only supports you to look at what happened after 150,000 years. You died in the simulated life. This simulated life has come to an end. Your soul and body are returning. A magnificent history spanning millions of years flashed before Lin Qiye's eyes. Lin Qiye's eyes were brimming with tears. I didn't expect that a passerby like me would leave such a deep imprint in the Xia universe. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. It's a pity that I can't live longer. If I lived for 50,000 more years, I would be able to obtain a large number of movement points. Lin Qiye was rather emotional. However, Lin Qiye was also satisfied to reach such a level in his second simulation. He was so satisfied that his joy was beyond words. Because the rewards really blinded his eyes. Chapter 13, S+ Grade Heaven-Defying Reward. You have broken through the limits of your life. The Life Lantern gem is fully formed. The gem imprint is imprinted on your left wrist. You can check it with your telepathy at any time. You have activated the simulated life memory slot. It can store the memories of your life and can be extracted and used by your telepathy at any time. You have activated the reincarnation wisdom card slot. It can store the reincarnation wisdom cards, thus possessing extraordinary intelligence at birth. You have activated the reincarnation physique card slot. It can store the reincarnation physique cards, thus possessing extraordinary physique at birth. From this simulated life, you have brought out a Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom card, bronze tier. With an almost heaven-defying performance, you have broken through the limits of your life and created two major historical events. Your score has reached S+. You have obtained an S+ score reward, 30,000 movement points. You now have 32,850 movement points. You have obtained an S+ score reward, the Silver Tier Reincarnation Wisdom card, Cosmic Clairvoyant. You have obtained an S+ score reward, a Silver Tier Reincarnation Physique card. Please choose between the Dragon Elephant Body, Immortal Crane Body, and Holy Monkey Body. You have obtained an S+ score reward, Qi Refinement Technique, pages 1, 2, and 3. You have obtained an S+ score reward, Extreme Flame Ring Saber. You can take out the saber at any time to fight in the main world. When traveling through simulations, your cultivation level needs to be raised to half of the main world to be able to summon it. There is a chance that it will be damaged. You have obtained an S+ score reward, Golden Crow Floating Island, Silver Tier. It is able to float in the air, disperse black fog, protect a radius of 50 miles, and house 100,000 people. The floating island is stored in the Life Lantern gem and can be taken out at any time. A series of notification sounds made Lin Qiye feel refreshed. Joy, elation, and pride. All kinds of emotions were mixed together, like a cocktail with a theme ecstatic. Lin Qiye raised his wrist and carefully admired the diamond-shaped Life Lantern gem blooming with purple light. As long as the gem was there, Lin Qiye would have the possibility to travel any galaxy and become infinitely stronger. The Life Lantern gem was the foundation of everything. Apart from that, the gem also had an extremely heaven-defying auxiliary function. In the center of the gem, there were 3 golden card slots the size of ink dots. The card slot could only be opened by a true galaxy practitioner. Each card slot had an amazing ability. For example, the first card slot was called the memory slot. It could store memories perfectly. Every time he walked through a world, his memories would be stored in it. When Lin Qiye needed it, he could use it at any time. Of course, the best method was to cut out the important memory fragments and imprint them in his mind. The other 2 slots were the Reincarnation Wisdom card slot and Reincarnation Physique card slot. Placing the cards in the card slot would give Lin Qiye a powerful boost. If he placed the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom card in the Reincarnation Wisdom card slot, Lin Qiye would have the academic research ability of a Nobel Prize winner. However, a card that was placed into the slot and then taken out would shatter and disappear. Every time it went through a simulation, the card would be corroded by the corresponding time and would appear damaged. A bronze card could only withstand 5 times of damage before disappearing. A silver card could only withstand 10 times of damage. Hence, the reincarnation cards were a consumable item and were extremely precious. A bronze card would start bidding at 10,000 movement points. A silver card would start bidding at 100,000 movement points. Lin Qiye thought of the expensive price of the reincarnation cards and couldn't help but feel delighted. My S+ score rewarded me with 2 silver tier reincarnation cards, and I even brought out a bronze card from the simulation process. Lin Qiye was speechless with joy. It was equivalent to a total of 210,000 movement points. A normal galaxy practitioner would not be able to save such a huge sum of points even after simulating dozens of times. Lin Qiye smiled and shook his head. Luckily, he had forcefully charged through the wave of S-level rewards. Otherwise, he would have suffered a huge loss. Lin Qiye silently gave a thumbs up for his wise choice. Then, he shouted in a ritualistic manner, "Place the Cosmic Clairvoyant." As he finished his sentence, a bright light shot into the space between Lin Qiye's eyebrows. Lin Qiye's comprehension and academic IQ skyrocketed. He had the appearance of a peerless genius. A silver card is really powerful. However, the physique card. How should I choose it? Lin Qiye examined the 3 physique cards. Dragon Elephant Body, Defense and Strength. During your cultivation, you will condense a Dragon Elephant Phantom. Your defense sends people into despair, and it can be said to be impregnable. Immortal Crane Body, Speed and Reaction. During your cultivation, you will condense an Immortal Crane Phantom. Your speed is extremely fast, and you can walk like you're flying. Holy Monkey Body, Agility and Arm Strength. During your cultivation, you will condense a Holy Monkey Phantom. Your arm strength can pull the divine bow, and your archery skills are extraordinary. Each card was of the highest quality. Lin Qiye thought for a while and finally chose the Dragon Elephant Body based on his excellent intuition. Place the Dragon Elephant Body. The second reincarnation card emitted red light and merged into Lin Qiye's heart. In an instant, the qi and blood in Lin Qiye's body surged, and countless powers lay dormant in his body. It was as if dragon roars and elephant cries came from his internal organs. What a top-grade treasure. It's worth my 30 years of hard work in the simulation world. Lin Qiye raised his eyebrows and looked at the other rewards happily. 30,000 movement points were also a good treasure. Lin Qiye's SSS grade permanent talent required movement points. Therefore, the more movement points, the better. Even 100 million wasn't too much. I can even sell the Nobel Prize Scientist Wisdom card. That way, I can get at least 10,000 movement points. In any case, I've got no use for a bronze card. Lin Qiye threw the card into the systems shop and priced it at 11,000 movement points. In an instant, the card was snatched away at a high price of 15,000 movement points. One could imagine the popularity of a reincarnation card. Hence, Lin Qiye now had 48,850 movement points. One had to know that a newbie who had just started condensing his life lantern gem could only get an average of 3,000 movement points. However, Lin Qiye defied the heavens to have more than 40,000 movement points, and this did not include the 2 silver cards. Without a doubt, Lin Qiye had profited greatly from this simulation life. However, this wasn't the end. There were even more rewards. Lin Qiye smiled and shook his head. Oh, I actually got the first, second, and third pages of the Qi refining technique. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. I thought that the cultivation method I spent 2,000 movement points to deduce would have been for naught. Who would have thought that it would be a triple return? Under normal circumstances, the martial arts in the main world had the reincarnation attribute, and the martial arts of the galaxy world would be severely damaged when they followed the life lantern gem into the main world. If one were to rashly cultivate, it would be easy for one to go berserk. Only a cultivation method rewarded by the life lantern gem could be used safely. Without a doubt, Lin Qiye had earned it. He quickly took out the Qi refinement technique and used the deduction of Genesis to perfect it. This time, the perfection consumed 15,000 movement points. However, the Qi refinement technique had reached perfection. Lin Qiye was satisfied. He immediately cultivated the flawless Qi refinement technique. Those 3 pages were burned to ashes in an instant. After that, the cultivation methods were imprinted in Lin Qiye's mind. Use 10,000 movement points to cultivate the Qi refinement technique to perfection. As his mind settled down, his movement points decreased by 10,000. Lin Qiye's cultivation increased explosively, and in an instant, he was at the peak of the Golden Core realm. The Dragon Elephant Phantom opened its scarlet eyes behind Lin Qiye. At this moment, Lin Qiye's strength had touched the silver tier. He was a silver tier galaxy practitioner, and even stronger than a normal one at. As for how much stronger, Lin Qiye estimated that an ordinary silver tier galaxy practitioner would not be able to withstand a full force punch from him. Not bad. The benefits I've gained from these 30 years of ascetic training are equivalent to the gains of others for hundreds of years. I've made a fortune. Lin Qiye was extremely satisfied. Just as he was about to check the Extreme Flame Ring Saber and Golden Crow Floating Island, his surroundings suddenly began to tremble. The space and time energy enveloping him shattered with a loud bang. It was as if an eggshell cracked and shattered. Then, in the simulation square, the 3,000 students all withdrew from their simulated life. The cautious Lin Qiye instantly restrained his aura. He observed his surroundings in an ordinary manner. At this moment, all kinds of reactions are happening in the square. The disappointed people knelt on the platform, hugging their faces and crying bitterly. I was so close. I can't accept it. I can't accept it. I could have defied the heavens and changed my fate. I could have become a galaxy practitioner. Why? Even the simulated life is so difficult. Why? There are always all sorts of accidents. Some disappointed ones wailed in grief. Was life really so malicious to them? Countless disappointed ones knelt on the ground, knocking the ground with their heads. They were ineffectual and furious. They had failed twice already. They would never have another chance. They would have to submit to a galaxy practitioner and become a breeding machine. If they wanted to live to 30, they would have to bear 5 children. Although 90% of them were frustrated people, there were a few exceptions. Next to Lin Qiye, Chen Fan's face lit up. Ha ha ha, brother, yeah, I did it. I did it. I am a dog. I have lived for 11 years and avoided more than 30 dog thieves. I have broken through the limits of my life. Brother, yeah, what are you? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Lin Qiye looked at Chen Fan, who was so proud of himself, and said, I am a teenager with a terminal illness. Chen Fan was speechless, and a hint of sadness appeared on his face. It was a nightmare-level simulation. Brother Ye would definitely fail to break through the limits. Chen Fan gently patted Lin Qiye's shoulder. It's okay, brother Ye. I will take care of you. You will not become a breeding machine. Chapter 14, forced to be the center of attention and became a hot commodity? Lin Qiye was about to explain when the principal's figure appeared above the central field. He was a little old, his hair was gray, and wrinkles appeared on his face. However, his figure was tall and sturdy. He held his head high with his chest puffed out. He had the temperament of a veteran. He raised an examination pearl, and the pearl emitted a purple light. After that, among the 3,000 students, 11 beams of light shot up into the sky. 4 of the beams were white, 5 were blue, and 1 was purple. The purple beam of light came from Chen Fan. He had turned into a puppy and escaped the trap of a dog thief more than 30 times. He had lived for 11 years and was loved by his owner. As a result, he received an A grade. Although the process of his simulation was rough, Chen Fan lifted his head proudly with a prideful face after returning to reality. Brother Ye, I have the purple light. I can protect you. However, when Chen Fan turned his head and looked at Lin Qiye, his proud smile froze as shock and surprise filled his face. Brother Ye, you have the golden light. Brother Ye, did you break through the limit of your illness? Lin Qiye nodded and looked at the golden pillar of light rising from his body. The golden light was as dazzling as the sun. It was too eye-catching. The 3,000 students gasped in surprise as they looked at Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye, who had wanted to keep a low profile, was forced to become the center of attention. Even the principal's gaze was filled with intense emotions. An S-rank genius? Amazing? He doesn't lose out to the younger generation of a 1,000-year-old family. With time, our Li City will also have diamond practitioners. The principal's lips curled up. He waved his hand, and the 11 new galaxy practitioners all came to his side. Many of the students had cautious expressions. Only Lin Qiye was calm. The principal was full of praise as he patted Lin Qiye on the shoulder. Well done. Your future is boundless. According to the school's rules, you can receive a reward of 50,000 movement points. The principal's palm pressed on Lin Qiye's shoulder as if he was giving him some kind of hope. Lin Qiye slightly raised his eyebrows. 50,000 movement points? It was a huge sum. Although Lin Qiye was quite rich and once had 43,850 movement points, perfecting and practicing the Qi refinement technique had used up a total of 20,000 movement points. Thus, Lin Qiye was left with 23,850 movement points in the end. He had planned to use it sparingly. However, Lin Qiye had never expected that the school's reward would be 50,000 movement points. It was a windfall. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Principal." The principal smiled and nodded. "Come on, the Li City Academy needs you." Then, "Hello Okade at Chen Fan. You have a grade A, and the school will reward you with 8,000 movement points." Chen Fan was ecstatic. He jumped up in excitement, which was several times more intense than Lin Qiye's reaction. After all, he had lived as a black puppy for 11 years before he was able to earn less than 3,000 movement points. But now, the school had given him nearly 3 times the reward. He could even buy a reincarnation card? Chen Fan felt a wave of warmth in his heart. Then, the principal also distributed the rewards to the others. However, the B grade only got 2,000 movement points, and the C grade only got 1,000 movement points. Compared to Lin Qiye, it was pitifully less. He received the movement point reward. The principal brought the 11 new galaxy practitioners to the Li City Academy's floating island area. There were 72 floating islands in the Academy's floating island area. Each floating island was a small town with lakes, gardens, and tall buildings. There were residents living there. When the black fog invades every night, the floating island would bloom with light and disperse the fog. Therefore, the floating island was the safest place. There was no need to worry about the black fog while living on the island. Our academy has produced more than 40 high-level galaxy practitioners from Li City. They all own a floating island. Later on, they will come to protect you. If you are willing, you can stay on their island for the time being. When you have enough movement points, you can consider setting up your own island. Generally speaking, for experienced gold practitioners, setting up an island is the most stable. After all, to maintain the operation of the island, you need a lot of movement points. If the movement points aren't enough, then the floating island will be swallowed by the black fog demons. The principal explained patiently. In a short while, they arrived at the floating island area. At the entrance of the floating island area, a total of 47 galaxy practitioners were waiting with their hands behind their backs. Most of them were gold practitioners. They had only seen 2 platinum practitioners. It was obvious that silver practitioners did not deserve or have the strength to own a floating island. Lin Qiye was an exception. Oh, there are still as few new practitioners this year as before. Yesterday, there were 36. Today, there are only 11. These 11 don't seem to be of high quality. The gold practitioners were discussing. However, it's been a long time since an S-grade genius appeared. There are only 3 A-grade geniuses. The quality is not good enough. The discussions were going on. The veteran galaxy practitioners were picky as they sized up Lin Qiye and the others. Principal, what are their grades? The principal smiled mysteriously and pointed at Lin Qiye. He has an S grade. And the one beside him has an A grade rating. What? The veterans were all stunned and looked at Lin Qiye with excitement. He's a little low-key. He got an S grade, but he didn't show any arrogance or pride. He must be some big shot. Come, brother, come to my floating island. I'm willing to give you the highest level of protection plus 50,000 movement points. I'll bid 60,000 movement points. I'll bid 70,000 movement points. The veteran galaxy practitioners suddenly started bidding. It caused Lin Qiye to be a little stunned. The principal promptly explained, they are investing in advance because their realms have stagnated for many years. If you can rise, in the future, you can lead them to form groups and then break through realms. It can be considered a kind of transaction. Lin Qiye instantly understood. Investment. A bet. If they succeed in the bet, they would rise up. And for a genius like Lin Qiye, who received an S grade right from the start, there was a high chance that he was the right bet. Therefore, they were naturally willing to dig out their foundations and throw in a lot of money. Lin Qiye looked at the crazy bidding among the galaxy practitioners with an indifferent expression. He did not care about the bidding price. After all, after receiving the 50,000 movement points from the Academy reward, Lin Qiye's movement points reached 73,850, which was enough for him to squander. Moreover, Lin Qiye always felt that these so-called investors were too eager. They were so eager to give out more than 100,000 movement points. In the future, if he were to take advantage of this kindness and ask him to form a term or do all sorts of things, what should he do? They might even spy on his secrets. Therefore, after careful consideration, Lin Qiye gave up on obtaining their investment. It was not that Lin Qiye had not thought of creating his own island. However, his strength and financial power could not support a floating island. On the other hand, creating an island required him to deal with many troubles and trivial stuff. At this stage, Lin Qiye only wanted to develop, and develop again. Therefore, his gaze swept past the veteran galaxy practitioners. Finally, he saw an ice-cold beauty. The beauty wore a blue training robe underneath, and her training clothes were tied tightly. Her waist was slim, and her long hair was tied into a high ponytail. She looked valiant like a valkyrie. She stood in the crowd but was drifting away. When she looked at anyone, there was a sense of alienation. Moreover, she did not open her mouth to compete, as if coming here was a routine matter. Lin Qiye's intuition told him that this beauty was the best choice. Her strength was not ordinary. Lin Qiye believed in his intuition. He slowly walked to the front of the ice-cold beauty and bowed to her. I choose you. Hearing this, the beauty was a little surprised. Her gaze moved slightly and landed on Lin Qiye. I don't have movement points to invest in you. Are you really going to choose me? The other veterans had hints of advice on their faces. Are you sure you want to choose her? Are the benefits we gave too low? With over 100,000 movement points, you can buy a silver tier reincarnation card. Don't you know how heaven-defying a silver grade reincarnation card is? Young man, don't think that just because you're talented, you can do anything. You have to work hard for 3 to 4 years before you can get one silver card. The veterans were trying to scare Lin Qiye. Hearing their words, Lin Qiye believed in his judgment even more. I don't need movement points. I'm willing to live on this beauty's island. The woman frowned slightly. Why? Lin Qiye's gaze was serious. I'm not suitable to bear too many debts of gratitude. It's better to be free. Hearing Lin Qiye's reply, the ice-cold beauty seemed to have been reminded of something, and she nodded slightly. Then you can stay with me. Are there any others? If anyone is willing to choose me, come with me. If not, I will leave first. Then, she turned around and left. Chen Fan stammered, brother, yeah, Lin Qiye understood what Chen Fan meant. He patted Chen Fan's shoulder and said, I personally think that it would be better to stay on this beauty's island. Don't you think so? Chen Fan stood still and thought for a moment. Then, he quickly followed Lin Qiye. He trusts Lin Qiye's judgment? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Up ahead, the woman led Lin Qiye and Chen Fan to her floating island. She turned her back on Lin Qiye, and her figure looked alluring. You still have a chance to turn back. If you go back on your words now, you will get tens of thousands of movement points. You can even buy a silver card. For a newbie, a silver tier reincarnation card is enough to let you soar to the sky. Are you really not going back on your word? Chapter 15, Second Life, Spiritual Energy Recovery, Descent of the Celestial Race. Listening to the cold beauty trying to tempt him, Lin Qiye smiled. Other newbies might lose their composure due to the temptation of the silver tier reincarnation card, but in Lin Qiye's eyes, it was just so-so. Was the silver card very expensive? Sorry, this humble one does not know how expensive the card can be. Lin Qiye shook his head in his heart. Of course, Lin Qiye didn't show off his foundation. Instead, he pretended to think for a while before rejecting it in the end. I believe in my judgment. There's no need to owe such a debt of gratitude. Lin Qiye's unwavering attitude caused even the ice beauty to be slightly surprised. She stood in the sky above the floating island. Not long after, a petite female greater galaxy practitioner came to her side. The ice beauty glanced at her and left. I'm Zhang Sheyao, Lord Shui's housekeeper. I'll be receiving the two of you now. The two of you are respected galaxy practitioners, so you have the right to live in a single villa by the peak. She pointed at the villa not far away. Lord Shui's floating island is divided into two levels, the peak and the foot of the mountain. The foot is inhabited by commoners, while the peak of the mountain is inhabited by 10 galaxy practitioners. The villa has a high-quality soul anchoring square. It can allow the two of you to walk freely in the galaxy worlds. If the two of you have not entered the simulation, you need to act at night to resist the demons that rushed out of the black fog. This is your duty on the floating island. Lord Shui will not force you to do anything else. Lin Qiye nodded and bade farewell to the housekeeper. Then, he moved into the villa with Chen Fan. Inside the mansion, Lin Qiye smiled and muttered that Lord Shui is not from Li City. Besides, she has a lot of secrets. She must be from a main city. Perhaps, she is an S-grade genius. Chen Fan was surprised. Brother Ye, how did you know? My intuition told me so. My intuition is accurate. The reason why I refused the investments was also because of my intuition. His intuition was based on his SSS-grade talent. Lin Qiye was confident. Chen Fan obeyed Lin Qiye and said, Brother Ye, I believe in you. Even if it is difficult for you to get started, you have to be self-reliant. Lin Qiye nodded slightly. There is nothing wrong with being careful. Once you have formed an interest-bearing relationship with them, you will not be able to decide for yourself. It is the best choice for you to become an unaffiliated person. Chen Fan agreed with him. That night, the principal sent an invitation. He invited the newly promoted galaxy practitioners to a party. Lin Qiye couldn't refuse and joined the party with Chen Fan. The party was divided into two factions, the academic faction and the Jianghu faction. The academic faction had a total of 47 students. The Jianghu faction had 106 students. When Lin Qiye walked in, everyone's eyes fell on him. Is he the S-grade genius, Lin Qiye? He looks a little handsome. Can I hook up with him? I have a great waist, and I know how to twist. Some of the plump girls flirted with Lin Qiye, but Lin Qiye ignored them all. Hehe, I heard that he rejected the investment of the veteran galaxy practitioners. That's more than 100,000 movement points. I think he doesn't know what's good for him. With more than 100,000 points, he can buy a silver card, a bronze card, and even other materials. It's enough for him to rise quickly. He underestimated the benefits of relying on the seniors. I have an A-grade talent. Although it's not as good as Lin Qiye's, my benefactor said that with his help, I can definitely rise 10 times faster than Lin Qiye. Tonight, many big shots of our Jianghu faction have decided to increase their investment in A-grade talents. We will rise quickly. They said that an S-grade talent can also fall while simulating. Hehe. The geniuses of the Jianghu faction whispered to each other, secretly releasing their hostility. The Jianghu faction and the academic faction had always conflicted. The leaders of the Jianghu faction had already informed them that they would not allow the academic faction's S-grade genius to rise. If they met Lin Qiye by chance in the world they were simulating in, they had to kill him. If they killed him, the organization will reward them handsomely. Because of this, the A-grade geniuses of the Jianghu faction stared at Lin Qiye with burning eyes. In their hearts, they wanted to defeat Lin Qiye and rise to prominence as a genius. As a galaxy practitioner, every time they simulated a world, there were endless possibilities. Talent did not represent everything. An A-grade talent could create a heaven-defying operation to suppress an S-grade genius. An S-grade talent could also fail miserably. More importantly, they had a huge backer behind them, so there was hope. As for Lin Qiye, he didn't know what was good for him and wanted to fight alone. The probability of a tragic death was extremely high. Of course, Lin Qiye noticed the hostility hidden in their eyes. It was normal to have hostility. Every time a galaxy practitioner runs a simulation, it would take decades, or even hundreds and thousands of years. If one experiences too much while simulating, their personality might become distorted. They might become friendly, or they might become numb to killing. Thus, hostility was expected. Lin Qiye didn't mind. However, if they met in a galaxy world and had a conflict, he would definitely let the other party know what cruelty was. At his side, the principal sat down. Do you feel the atmosphere? Where there are people, there will be fights. Even within the academic faction, there are conflicts of interest. This party is just to let you all know that the world is dangerous. Lin Qiye nodded and quietly stayed up until the end of the party. Back at the villa, Lin Qiye browsed through the systems shop. A silver tier weapon was worth more than 100,000 movement points. The lowest price for a silver tier reincarnation card was 100,000 points. A card like Lin Qiye's dragon elephant body had reached 500,000. A bronze tier cultivation method fragment had a price of 800,000 movement points. Wouldn't the 3 pages of the Qi refinement technique sell for 2 million? Lin Qiye was stunned. He roughly estimated the S+ reward was equivalent to a few million movement points. Of course, it might be because Lin Qiye managed to survive until the spiritual energy restoration started. Lin Qiye analyzed silently while he continued browsing the shop. There is good stuff, but they're too expensive. I can't afford them now. I'd better get some rewards while simulating my life. Tomorrow, I'll start the second round of simulation. I'll strive to get the SS grade rewards and raise my strength to that of a gold practitioner. Lin Qiye knew that in a world that was invaded by black fog, the strength of a silver practitioner was not enough. Perhaps he could obtain protection for a while, but he could not live under the protection forever. He had to have top-notch strength to decide his own fate. With that thought in mind, Lin Qiye fell asleep. The next day, Lin Qiye woke up in high spirits. Chen Fan knocked on the door of the villa early in the morning. Brother Yat, do you want to go shopping? We can go buy some beautiful maids. Lin Qiye was speechless. No, I want to activate another simulation. Chen Fan was surprised. You activated the simulation? Aren't you afraid of failure? If you fail once, the power of the life lantern gem will be halved. If you fail twice, you will have to wait a year to recover. I'm not afraid. Lin Qiye's gaze was burning. Lin Qiye, who had the deduction of Genesis, was full of confidence. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid that his strength was weak, and he wouldn't be able to establish himself in the main world. The current him was still a student who lived under the protection of others. He was so weak that he didn't even dare to own a floating island, because he was afraid of being targeted. If Lin Qiye was a platinum practitioner, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. He would be able to suppress the academic faction and Jianghu faction. Therefore, Lin Qiye was eager to improve his strength. I am going to simulate my second life. See you tomorrow. Chen Fan quickly stopped Lin Qiye. At least look at the forum for a guide. Lin Qiye shook his head. The high-quality guides on the forum cost a lot of movement points. It was too expensive. I need to earn some movement points. Lin Qiye shook his head and sighed. After saying that, he hid in the depths of the villa and sat on the soul anchoring square. He anchored his soul and was prepared to walk in the galaxy world. The life lantern gem has sufficient energy. You can start simulating in the galaxy world at any time. You currently possess the dragon elephant body and silver tier wisdom card, cosmic clairvoyant. You can bring all of the pages of the Qi refinement technique and all your knowledge in the biology field to your second simulation. Your weapon, Extreme Flame Ring Saber, could be brought into the simulation, but you need to fulfill the conditions to unlock it. Do you wish to activate simulation and enter a new life? Please note that every time you activate a simulation, the world and your identity will be randomly generated. Please note that you cannot bring your cultivation into the world. You were born a fragile baby, and there are countless possibilities of premature death. Please carefully confirm whether or not to activate the galaxy simulation and enter the simulated life. Lin Qiye let out a deep breath. Yes, the simulated life begins. The life lantern is burning, lighting up your life dash. This world is lacking in spiritual energy, martial arts are declining, and technology is advanced. Big guns and cannons can kill martial art grandmasters. Unfortunately, capitalists and powerful people disregard human lives. The gap between the rich and the poor is big. The rich live in the palace, while the commoners struggle to survive in the slums. At the age of 0, your mother abandoned you in the grass by the roadside. Fortunately, an old woman took you in. At the age of 1, a mouse bit off one of your ears. You were frightened and became autistic. At the age of 3, you lived in the slums with your grandmother. A drunkard hurt your leg. Fortunately, your grandmother saved you. However, you were crippled. At the age of 4, you were beaten while collecting scrap. From then on, your left hand could not exert any strength. At the age of 6, a gangster slapped you. You lost your hearing in your left ear. At the age of 8, your grandmother was killed. You were heartbroken. You had no one to rely on. You collected scrap to survive. At the age of 10, the axe gang in the slums fought with each other. You were caught in the crossfire. Your left leg was cut off. Fortunately, you did not die. At the age of 11, the spiritual energy in the world was restored. The celestial race descended, and the world underwent a drastic change. A mysterious organization found out that you had an incomparable bone structure. You were forcibly deprived of your bone structure by the mysterious organization. At the age of 12, you lived for a year and died miserably in a dark dungeon. Rats and maggots ate your corpse. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Cite only. Remarks, your life has only been a short 12 years, but all of it has been a tragedy. Except for the warmth your grandmother gave you, your life has been immersed in darkness. Even rats and maggots were happier than you. Wow, making it hard for me to survive, right? Lin Qiye felt completely numb. He was born in a nightmare mode, even more tragic than his first life. At least he had good parents in his first life. Chapter 16, Abandoned Baby, Nightmarish Fight for Survival. However, Lin Qiye's first life wasn't any better. Lin Qiye defied nature and conquered cancer, but in the end, he still couldn't cure that incurable disease and died at the age of 30. If Lin Qiye didn't have cancer, he would be able to live for more than 1,000 years. He might even get an SS score. In comparison, his second life was slightly more optimistic. At the very least, his lifespan could be extended indefinitely. Of course, he was not that optimistic either. Right at the start of the simulation, his life was screwed. He was abandoned after being born. His talent and wisdom could not be used. Lin Qiye sighed helplessly. However, the worse the start, the higher the score after defying the heavens and changing fate. So, deduction of Genesis, create a perfect solution for me. The deduction would require 100,000 movement points. Stop. I'll take it one step at a time. Lin Qiye shook his head. His intuition told him that he should use his current points separately. After all, no matter how perfect the plan was, it could not keep up with the changes. After all, the simulation was not a simple game. The actual situation was unpredictable. He needed to be careful and avoid all accidents. He also needed to adapt to the situation and act according to the wind. At this point, Lin Qiye gave up on the deduction. I'll enter the simulation directly. This time, I don't have the threat of terminal illness. I have to live for 1,000 years and get a grade above SS. Lin Qiye started the second round of simulation with strong emotions. You are entering the simulation. Your next life officially begins. Wah! In the grass of the slums, a skinny woman was violently cutting a baby's umbilical cord and then wrapped the wrinkled child with a piece of cloth that she had picked up somewhere. Damn it! It's so loud when it's just born. How annoying. The woman's face was pale. She placed Lin Qiye in the bushes by the roadside, then she moved with weak steps and disappeared as if she was fleeing. The night was dark. Lin Qiye's heart was full of bitterness. He had lost his sense of security. Darkness, hunger, and coldness pounced on him. It made him want to cry out loud subconsciously. But Lin Qiye held it in. He didn't cry out loud. He opened his mouth wide and absorbed the fresh air with his lungs. He was so cold. He was so hungry. He wanted to drink milk. Lin Qiye smacked his small mouth. Babies were especially prone to hunger, and he didn't know how long he would starve in the grass. According to the laws of science, if a baby didn't eat or drink, it would die in 3 days. But Lin Qiye couldn't hold on for 3 days. If he didn't eat or drink for 3 days, he would become retarded, handicapped, and might even lose his legs. Lin Qiye sighed in his heart. I have to save myself. But how can I do it? First, I have to pay attention to the situation of the passersby. Most of the passersby won't even look at me. Only that old granny will adopt me. I have to cry louder when she comes. Lin Qiye planned carefully. He only had this slim chance of survival, and he had to seize it. Lin Qiye was a little nervous. He was afraid that he would miss out on the only woman who could save his life. However, a ray of surprising light suddenly flashed in front of Lin Qiye's eyes. Hey, how did I forget? This is a world where spiritual energy is restored. Maybe I can use the Qi refinement technique to absorb the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to prolong my life temporarily. With this in mind, Lin Qiye immediately activated the deduction of Genesis. Deduce whether there is spiritual energy between heaven and earth. Can I cultivate the Qi refinement technique? This deduction consumed 850 movement points, remaining 73,850 walking points. Deduction result: the spiritual energy in this world is thin, and it was not restored yet. Please do not cultivate the Qi refinement technique at such a young age. However, you are a newborn baby. You have not dispersed your innate Qi yet, and you have an unparalleled bone structure. You can use this to deduce a method to nurture innate Qi. Lin Qiye grasped this slim chance of survival. Immediately deduce a method to nurture my innate qi. This deduction will consume 40,000 movement points, remaining 73,000 movement points. The consumption is so terrifying. Lin Qiye hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still spent the points to carry out the deduction. His intuition told him that this deduction would bring endless benefits. After all, deducing the qi refinement technique only needed 2,000 movement points, but this deduction required 20 times the movement points. It would definitely deduce a precious technique that would bring endless benefits. Lin Qiye was especially looking forward to it. A few dozen seconds later, his thoughts slightly trembled. Deduction successful. Obtained the Dao repository technique. Contains a mouthful of innate qi that is indestructible, which nourishes the body, thus creating an innate divine body. Only newborn babies with Dao bone structure can cultivate it. Dao repository technique. That's some good stuff. Lin Qiye immediately began to cultivate this page of the Dao repository technique. As Lin Qiye was a newborn baby, his mouthful of innate qi had not been corrupted yet. He also had a Dao bone structure. Thus, the Dao repository technique quickly circulated in his body. Lin Qiye's sharp senses could tell that his mouthful of innate qi was originally a scattered special spiritual energy. But under the refinement of the Dao repository technique, it had turned into the 9-strand innate qi that could be freely controlled and never dissipate. Then, the 9-strand innate qi quickly traveled through Lin Qiye's limbs, bones, and internal organs. At the same time, the weak spiritual energy in the world was under some kind of traction, and strands of it flowed into Lin Qiye's body. Under the nourishment of the innate qi and the spiritual energy between heaven and earth, Lin Qiye's wrinkled skin began to open up, becoming white and ruddy. His eyes were pitch black and translucent, like black gemstones. It didn't seem cold anymore, but he was a little hungry. His small hands had some strength. He was now equivalent to a 1-month-old baby. He had become much stronger. This Dao repository technique is quite outstanding. Continue to nourish my body. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. He didn't expect the effect to be so significant. He buried his head in practicing the Dao repository technique while paying attention to the footsteps around him. Suddenly, Lin Qiye's heart trembled. He heard the barking of a wild dog. Oh no, the wild dogs in the slums could devour people? Lin Qiye immediately held his breath. However, he knew that it was useless to hold his breath. The wild dog had a keen sense of smell, and the cord blood on his body would allow it to find him. Lin Qiye's heart sank to the bottom. He silently listened to the wild dog's paws crisscrossing as it slowly approached. It was close. The wild dog approached Lin Qiye. Their eyes met. A pair of green eyes filled with hostility stared at Lin Qiye as if they were looking at a piece of delicious meat. Lin Qiye suddenly bared his teeth and let out a shrill cry. The strange cry was mixed with some spiritual energy. It was extremely penetrative and strange. The dog jumped in fright and ran away with its tail between its legs. Its whimper echoed. Obviously, the dog was scared by Lin Qiye's premeditated threat. It seemed like its soul was trembling. It should not be coming back. Humans are afraid of wild beasts, but wild beasts are even more afraid of humans, Lin Qiye thought to himself. But I'm still an infant, so I have to be on full alert. I can't sleep. No matter how sleepy I am, I can't sleep. Lin Qiye's eyelids began to fight. He forced himself to focus and cultivate the Dao repository technique. Wisps of spiritual energy seeped into his internal organs, and Lin Qiye's spirit slightly recovered. But he was still sleepy. After all, he was an infant. More importantly, Lin Qiye didn't have teeth, so he couldn't bite his tongue and rely on pain to stay awake. Lin Qiye could only rely on his thin willpower to resist. Persevere? He can't sleep. Once he fell asleep, he would die. Lin Qiye didn't dare to sleep at all. Sure enough, he made the right choice. He met 7 wild dogs after that. They all wanted to eat him. Fortunately, Lin Qiye relied on a little bit of spiritual energy to drive them away. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. After 2 hours, Lin Qiye was drowsy, and his spirit was at its limit. The endless darkness gradually swallowed his consciousness. What should I do? Won't the old grandma come? Am I going to be eaten by the wild dogs? My 40,000 movement points? If I die, I'll be at a loss. Lin Qiye was unwilling. He used his strong determination to keep his eyes open. His gaze was emitting a strong desire to live. Even if it was 1 more second, Lin Qiye was fighting against his limits. Suddenly, footsteps sounded. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. From the rhythm of the footsteps, it was an old person. Is it the grandma who would save me? I really hope so. I can't hold on anymore. If this isn't it, I'll definitely die. With this thought in mind, Lin Qiye wailed loudly. Oh, kind-hearted person, please save this child. Chapter 17, Survival in the Slums, No Lack of Food from Now on. Save me. I have yet to display all my talents. My dragon elephant body, my cosmic clairvoyant, my Dao repository technique, and my Qi refinement technique. I have yet to defy the heavens and change my fate. Whoever saves me will save a treasure. Lin Qiye burst into tears, using his cries to attract the granny's attention. Is it a wild cat? No, it seems to be a child. The granny was alert. She held a long wooden stick tightly and pushed the grass aside carefully. In the grass, a fair and chubby child forced his bright eyes open. His pitch-black eyes sparkled. Lin Qiye squeezed out a soft and cute smile at the granny. It was like a blooming flower, a newborn sunrise. The warm and cute smile melted the old lady's heart. What a poor baby. He was thrown away right after he was born? What a cruel heart. Sigh, how pitiful. She gently carried Lin Qiye and hid him in her arms. Be good. Do not cry, and come home with Grandma Lin. If I have a bite of food, I'll give you half. It may be difficult to feed you, but at least you will not freeze to death outside. Grandma Lin covered Lin Qiye tightly and comforted him kindly. In an instant, Lin Qiye's body warmed up. The sense of security returned to the bottom of his heart. Lin Qiye, who was exhausted, closed his eyes and fell into a deep slumber. In his sleep, the Dao repository technique automatically circulated and cleansed Lin Qiye's internal organs until they were spotlessly clean. Unknowingly, Lin Qiye's 9 strands of innate qi had turned into 13 strands. The next day, a strong sense of hunger woke Lin Qiye up. Lin Qiye lay on a wooden bed and opened his eyes. What he saw was a small room. Many sundries were piled up on the walls, and the space was cramped. Without a doubt, this was a slum, a shanty town. The conditions were difficult, but Lin Qiye did not care. I'm good as long as I survive. As long as I survive until I'm 2 or 3 years old, I'll be able to soar into the sky, and no one can stop me. Lin Qiye was full of confidence. He lay in the swaddling clothes, his mouth wide open, trying hard to absorb oxygen. Grandma Lin squatted in the corner of the room to cook porridge. From time to time, she would look back at Lin Qiye. When she saw Lin Qiye blinking, not crying or making a fuss, her wrinkled face looked surprised. Then, she reached out her hand and slapped Lin Qiye's butt. Lin Qiye cried out in pain. Cry? How can a child not cry? Grandma Lin scolded with a smile. She turned around and took out the sticky rice soup on the top of the porridge from the pot. She blew on it gently and then fed it to Lin Qiye. Food? It was food? Lin Qiye was ecstatic. He had not eaten for more than 10 hours. The aroma of the food made him hungry. He opened his mouth wide and swallowed the rice soup greedily. The warm liquid slid into his stomach and nourished his hungry little body. After eating and drinking his fill, Lin Qiye smiled at Grandma Lin. His smile was happy and soft. Grandma Lin also smiled. Her wrinkles were folded, but her eyes were full of kindness. At this moment, she felt the joy of having a family. Her eyes were moist and filled with tears. God has treated me well. He has sent me a good grandson. Grandma Lin teased the baby. If I only gave you rice soup, will you be full? I will catch a few lizards later. It would be best if I find some lizard eggs and make you egg soup. Grandma Lin touched her gray hair and raised her head, revealing a face full of confidence. She had a unique skill, catching lizards. Lizards hid in an area where there were few people. It was difficult for ordinary people to have the patience to catch them. However, she was different. She was an expert at catching lizards. She knew what kinds of lizards there were, their habits, what type of escape routes they had, where they liked to stay, and where they would lay their eggs. She survived in the slums for so long by picking up trash and catching lizards. Thinking of this, Grandma Lin was quite pleased with herself. As she drank the remaining porridge, she wrapped Lin Qiye in a thin blanket. At the same time, she used a wooden board and a cardboard box to block the side of the bed so that Lin Qiye would not fall. After the preparation, Grandma Lin went out with a small basket. My dear grandson, Grandma is going out to get food for you. Stay at home and don't be afraid. The house is safe. After she finished speaking, the sound of a padlock could be heard from outside the door. A large copper lock was stuck into the rusty iron door. Unless someone forcefully broke the lock, Lin Qiye's life would not be in danger. Not long after, the sound of Grandma's footsteps gradually faded away. Inside the room, only Lin Qiye was staring at the ceiling, full of energy. After sleeping for a while, I seem to have become a bit stronger. My current physique is equivalent to a 2-month-old baby. Lin Qiye was shocked. So, the Dao repository technique can automatically revolve? What a heaven-defying cultivation method! I have to bring it back to the main world? After all, it cost me 40,000 movement points. Also, that unparalleled Dao bone structure in my body. I have to think of a way to bring it back to the main world. A strong desire arose in Lin Qiye's heart. His intuition told him that bringing the Dao repository technique and his Dao bone structure back to the main world would bring endless benefits. But to take away 2 top-tier treasures, I need at least an SS rating. I have to get an SS rating. With that in mind, Lin Qiye let out a deep breath. He immediately calmed down. He quickly circulated the Dao repository technique, and the innate qi in his body circulated in his internal organs. Every time he circulated it, the innate qi in his body would increase slightly. A few hours passed in the blink of an eye. The innate qi in Lin Qiye's body changed from 13 strands to 15 strands. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. One had to know that the innate qi would usually dissipate after an infant was born. But Lin Qiye's innate qi did not dissipate. Instead, it even increased. And when one's innate qi reached a certain level, they would be able to condense an innate divine body. Although he didn't know what was so special about the innate divine body, Lin Qiye's body had now reached a level where it was spotless. Lin Qiye did not dare to imagine how heaven-defying it would be if he took another step forward. In short, I must form the innate divine body. If I can form it, I will have more confidence in reaching the SS grade. Lin Qiye smiled lightly and was about to continue channeling the Dao repository technique. Kuka. The lock on the door opened. Grandma Lin quickly entered the house and locked the door. Then, she carefully took out 3 fingernail-sized lizard eggs and 2 lizards from her bosom. Grandson, come and eat. I'll catch more later. I'll try my best not to let you starve. Then, Grandma Lin immediately began to slaughter the lizards. She made egg soup and lizard meat for Lin Qiye. Not long after, the fragrant egg soup and lizard meat were served to Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye gulped down a meal and felt warm all over. However, the food was quite little. After all, a baby needed more nutrients. Not only did he have to eat, but he also had to eat a few meals daily. If there were only 2 or 3 lizards tomorrow, it might cause malnutrition and abnormal growth. It could obstruct his path of rising. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. Suddenly, he had an idea. Got it? He thought of a solution to break the situation. From now on, he would not be short of food anymore. Chapter 18, Rapid Growth in 3 months. He was going to be captured and sold. After thinking of a plan, Lin Qiye immediately carried it out. He gave Grandma Lin a soft and cute smile and opened his arms to ask for a hug. Oh, my good grandson wants a hug? Such a good and handsome child. Grandma Lin broke into a smile so wide that she couldn't close her mouth. She hugged Lin Qiye in her arms, patted his back, and coaxed him to start schooling. Lin Qiye let out a happy laugh. His small hands pressed on the back of Grandma Lin's neck. Then, a wisp of innate qi carefully entered Grandma Lin's body, eliminating the hidden injuries and strain on her spine and waist. Innate qi was strong in the sense that it could strengthen one's body. Grandma Lin's spine and waist, which had aged for decades, suddenly returned to their original state of 20 years ago. Grandma Lin felt something strange on her neck and back, but she thought that the child was different, so she still carried Lin Qiye and paced around. As she walked, she muttered, "The old saying is right. A child is not afraid of the cold. Look at this little palm. It's even a little hot." In this regard, Lin Qiye only let out a soft and cute laugh. Then, he twisted his body and placed his hands near Grandma Lin's eyes. 2 wisps of innate qi warmed Grandma Lin's somewhat misty eyes. Grandma Lin only felt that Lin Qiye's little hands were especially warm, so she closed her eyes and enjoyed it for a while. When she opened her eyes, she felt that she could see clearly. The presbyopia that once troubled her had disappeared, and her eyesight was as good as when she was young. Grandma Lin blinked, thinking it was an illusion. She didn't take it to heart. After teasing Lin Qiye for a while, Grandma Lin went out. She still had to catch a few lizards in the afternoon. Otherwise, the baby wouldn't have enough to eat. Grandma Lin knew that she might not be able to catch so many lizards in her old age, but she had to be responsible for the baby. However, Grandma Lin never expected that she had become much more agile. Her eyes and hands were quick. She caught 5 fat 4-legged snakes in one go. It was a bumper harvest that she hadn't had in many years. Grandma Lin, who had returned with a full load, laughed until her wrinkles were folded together. She squatted in a corner of the room and boiled a pot of fragrant snake soup. The 2 of them ate their fill and felt happy. For the next few days, the lizard hunter Grandma Lin returned with a full load every day. She even went to dig out the bird's nest. Thus, this small family no longer lacked food. Not only did Lin Qiye eat 3 meals every day, but Grandma Lin could also eat to her heart's content. The lizard meat soup replenished the newly born Lin Qiye with precious nutrients. After the food was sufficient, Lin Qiye's face was ruddy, full of energy and nutrients. Whether it was during the day or at night, the cultivation speed of the Dao repository technique was even faster. His innate qi was increasing day by day, and his body was also developing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 5 days, Lin Qiye had the height and physique of an ordinary 3-month-old baby. Even his dragon elephant body began to take shape. An invisible phantom wrapped around Lin Qiye's whole body. When Lin Qiye received passive or active damage, the dragon elephant phantom would instantly surge out to block the damage. At this stage, even if Lin Qiye fell off the bed, he would be unharmed. After noticing this, Lin Qiye's heart was filled with both surprise and anticipation. A silver tier reincarnation card does not disappoint. What level will it reach after growing for another month? Lin Qiye sighed. He thought that his speed of rising would be average and that he would need to slowly endure until he was 3 or 5 years old. But he never imagined that the dragon elephant body had exceeded his expectations. It was only 5 days since he was born, but it had already displayed a heaven-defying effect. Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. In order for the dragon elephant body to grow, I need to allow my body to develop faster. Firstly, I need to eat my fill every day. Secondly, the Dao repository technique extracts innate qi. Innate qi can nourish my body, allowing my height to soar and my body to be strong. This isn't difficult. Lin Qiye nodded and had a rough plan. In the following month, Lin Qiye used innate qi 3 times to strengthen Grandma Lin's body. At this moment, Grandma Lin felt younger by 20 years. Her presbyopia had disappeared completely, and her legs were as agile as a 30-year-old woman. She could return with a full load every day. Naturally, Lin Qiye ate until he was healthy and chubby, not knowing what hunger was. A month later, Lin Qiye's height and physique had already surpassed that of an ordinary 1-year-old child. He could speak and even walk on the ground. However, Lin Qiye's personality was cautious, and he did not show it. He only secretly ran on the ground when Grandma Lin went out to catch lizards. Of course, to Lin Qiye, walking and talking after a month was not against nature. What was even more heaven-defying was that Lin Qiye's dragon elephant body had reached 1%. The faint dragon elephant phantom was enough to block a blade attack. If an ordinary adult were to swing the kitchen knife at Lin Qiye with all his might, it would be blocked. And Lin Qiye's physical strength was also comparable to an adult's. One punch from him could make an adult dizzy. As expected of a silver-tier dragon elephant body. I've fallen in love. Lin Qiye was overjoyed. He was no longer a weak baby. In the second month, the innate qi in Lin Qiye's body increased rapidly, reaching as many as 1,000 strands. Although the innate qi didn't increase his cultivation, Lin Qiye knew that it allowed his body to be spotless and flawless. It was condensing a supreme cultivation foundation. Therefore, Lin Qiye didn't cultivate the qi refinement technique at all. On one hand, if he forcefully cultivated before the right age, it would hinder his potential. On the other hand, Lin Qiye also wanted to condense the best foundation. It wouldn't be too late to cultivate after he had a supreme foundation. After all, sharpening a knife wouldn't delay the work of chopping wood. Wouldn't it be wonderful if he could sharpen a peerless treasured knife? Moreover, the restoration of spiritual energy had not yet begun. Relying on his dragon elephant body, which had reached 2% power, Lin Qiye was invulnerable to knives and spears. It was enough to deal with 90% of the situations. However, the cautious Lin Qiye still carefully hid his genius side. In the third month, Lin Qiye's dragon elephant body rose to 3%. His height grew to 1.1 meters, and his extraordinary growth was almost ridiculous. Even Grandma Lin felt that something was wrong. Was this a 3-month-old baby? People would even believe her if she said Lin Qiye was 4 years old. Grandma Lin fell into doubt, and she looked Lin Qiye up and down. Could it be that I fed the baby too well? It should be so. In the past few months, her efficiency in catching lizards had never been higher. Therefore, although Lin Qiye was in the slums, he was healthy and chubby, and his face was as fair as jade. He was as cute as the children raised by the rich in the city. Even the children raised in the city were not as good-looking. With this thought in mind, Grandma Lin raised her head proudly. It seems that after having a full stomach, I am becoming younger and younger. Besides, this kid will be a big shot in the future. It's normal for him to be born different from ordinary people. Grandma Lin nodded. I have to catch more food for my good grandson. I can't starve him. Grandma Lin muttered to herself. Lin Qiye, who was beside her, was a little worried. Recently, Grandma Lin woke up earlier and earlier but returned home late at night. She was also getting more tired, which meant that there were no more lizards to catch nearby. Grandma Lin had to run to further and more remote places to catch lizards. It was dangerous. Lin Qiye had to stop her. Therefore, he opened his mouth and spoke. Grandma. Hearing Lin Qiye speak, Grandma Lin was dumbfounded. Then, she smiled so brightly that her wrinkles piled up. Hey, good grandson, you can speak now. At this moment, Grandma Lin's heart melted. The child that she had painstakingly raised could now call her grandma? How wonderful! Seeing a little life growing up was also a form of satisfaction for an old woman. However, just as Grandma Lin was about to enjoy familial love, a man violently kicked on their door outside. The kicking sound was mixed with unbearably filthy curses. Grandma Lin, get out here right now. Have you hidden any treasures in your room recently? Hurry up and hand them over to me. Granny Lin's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly held on to the iron door. Hide under the bed. Quick. Lin Qiye's expression did not change. Grandma, open the door. Don't be afraid. Grandma Lin was extremely anxious. quickly hide. However, in the next moment, the rusty iron door was kicked open, and Grandma Lin staggered back, almost falling to the ground. Lin Qiye's gaze slightly darkened. He watched as a muscular bald man with a mouthful of yellow teeth who smelled like smoke entered the room. Yo, Grandma Lin, you raised a child? Are you going to sell it to the rich people in the city? The rich people in the city will definitely offer a high price for this kid. Greed flashed in the bald man's eyes as if he saw a gold mine. Lin Qiye was too good looking. Such looks? He had bright eyes and fair skin. The man could sell Lin Qiye for citizenship and 2 million angel coins. It was hard to buy citizenship with money. 2 million angel coins was a huge sum of money. One had to know that the middle-level people in the city could only earn 100,000 a year. But now, the opportunity to get rich was right in front of him. Who wouldn't be tempted? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. The bald man laughed wickedly. God treats me well. Seeing that I'm poor, he gave me a gold mine. Ha 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 ha. While he was talking, he suddenly grabbed Lin Qiye with his big hands. This little thing. I'll sell you and give you a reward of 100,000 angel coins. You'd better not resist, or I'll beat you to death. Chapter 19, Living a Luxurious Life. How nice it would be to mature in a year? The bald man threatened. Grandma Lin's face was full of anxiety. She roared with a sobbing tone, Li Mao, don't touch my grandson. He's only a few months old. Please let him go. I'm willing to be your slave. Hearing that, Li Mao spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. Bah, you old hag, what's the point of having you as a slave? If I sell this little thing, I can become a millionaire. Today, I'm going to make a fortune. No one can stop me. The corners of Li Mao's mouth curled up, and he laughed arrogantly. Grandma Lin, don't you know what's good for you? You poor bastard. You don't even have enough to eat every day. Can you afford to raise such a beautiful child? Why don't you sell him to the rich people in the city and let him live comfortably? Hearing that, Grandma Lin was exasperated. Gritting her teeth, she pounced on Li Mao. Bastard! I'll fight it out with you. Although she knew that she was already old and charging forward was like hitting an egg against a stone, Grandma Lin still charged forward without any reason. Idiot! Get out of my way. Li Mao's mouth twitched. He let out a cold smile and threw out a slap. Grandma Lin was, after all, in her 70s. How could she be compared to the ruthless people who often fought and killed in the slums? It was just a push, but Grandma Lin staggered backward and knocked into the pile of debris. Grandma Lin, who felt that she was powerless, burst into tears. My grandson? Don't steal my good grandson. Grandma Lin cried so hard that her heart was torn apart. She rolled and crawled toward Li Mao. Lin Qiye took 2 steps back, finding the best angle to attack. Then, his eyes locked on Li Mao. Facing a little kid, Li Mao was not wary at all. He slowly approached Lin Qiye. His huge shadow covered half of the room. Killing intent flashed in Lin Qiye's eyes. With his center lowered, he quickly bent his knees and squatted down. When Li Mao approached, Lin Qiye suddenly jumped up like a cannonball repelled by the gravity of the earth. With lightning speed, he crashed into Li Mao's chest. Then, his small fist landed on Li Mao's chest. Although his fist was small, it displayed 3% of the dragon elephant body, and its lethality was terrifying. Even a steel plate could be penetrated with one punch. The instant his punch landed on Li Mao's chest, Li Mao's breathing suddenly stopped. A series of bone-shattering sounds that made one's hair stand on end rang out in front of his chest. In the next second, all his broken ribs were dislocated by the force of the punch and pierced into Li Mao's internal organs. Li Mao's heart immediately shattered. A heart-wrenching pain gushed out from his heart, turning into a blood-red liquid with a strong smell of rust in Li Mao's throat. Li Mao was dumbfounded. A small child had smashed his chest with a punch. He was terrified. He stared at Lin Qiye, and his pale face was filled with shock, fear, regret, and other emotions. Are you really a child? He was full of doubt. However, Lin Qiye couldn't be bothered to answer Li Mao. From the beginning to the end, he didn't make a sound. He was waiting for a chance to kill Li Mao in one strike and get it done instantly. After all, he was just a 3-month-old baby. If the battle dragged on for too long, there might be unexpected changes. Killing Li Mao in one strike was the way to go. Because of this, Lin Qiye didn't make any movements at the beginning. And Lin Qiye's choice was right. He killed the defenseless Li Mao with one punch. At this moment, Li Mao lay on the ground, dying. He didn't even have the strength to struggle. Lin Qiye silently locked the rusty iron door and dragged Li Mao under the bed to hide his body. Grandma, are you okay? Grandma Lin stood up with a dirty face, grabbed a handful of ashes from the bottom of the pot, and sprinkled it on Lin Qiye. You demon, quickly leave! Leave my grandson's body. Give my grandson back. Ho! Grandma Lin chanted a spell. Lin Qiye revealed a cute smile. Grandma, I am your grandson, not a demon. I am just born with supernatural strength and early intelligence. Look at me. I'm only 3 months old, and I'm already as tall as a 3-year-old. Isn't that special? I must be born to be a legend. Lin Qiye put his hands on his waist. He added a characterization for himself. Hearing that, Grandma Lin nodded heavily. Yes, my good grandson will definitely be a big shot in the future. She smiled amiably. There was relief and expectation in her smile. However, her expression suddenly changed. My good grandson, you must hide your superhuman strength well. It's not too late to expose it when you're in your teens. Don't let others have evil intentions. Lin Qiye promised. Okay, I'll be careful. Oh right, Grandma, I found a treasure. As he spoke, Lin Qiye jumped out of bed and took out 100 angel coins and a bunch of keys from Li Mao's pocket. Look, it's the key to his house. With the key, we can live there. He must have supplies enough for us to live carefree for a long time. However, Grandma Lin's face was full of worry. Will there be any danger? What if we are targeted by others? Lin Qiye raised his eyebrows indifferently. Then I will kill them all. Regarding this, Grandma Lin was speechless. She didn't want Lin Qiye to fight. What if he was injured? But Lin Qiye was in a period of growth. His appetite was increasing day by day. It was becoming more and more difficult for her to rely on the lizards to feed Lin Qiye. If they could live in Li Mao's house, she could be relieved for half a year or even longer. After weighing the pros and cons, Grandma Lin agreed to Lin Qiye's suggestion. So that night, Lin Qiye and Grandma Lin moved into Li Mao's house. Compared to Grandma Lin's small room, Li Mao's house was particularly luxurious. The outer walls were welded with iron plates. Although the iron plates were rusted, they were all snatched from the garbage dump. However, they were tightly welded together, making Lin Mao's house look like a small castle. Inside the house, there were 3 bedrooms, a living room, a small attic, and a warehouse. When they opened the warehouse, they were greeted by a shelf of canned beef, instant hot braised chicken boxes, potatoes, and other food. There were even frozen ham, pork, and beef in the freezer. So many resources? Li Mao is rich. These resources are enough to enjoy ourselves for half a year. Grandma Lin laughed so hard that her wrinkles were stacked together. This is great. My good grandson can finally eat good meat. Grandma Lin was happy and gratified. She felt a little bad for letting Lin Qiye eat lizard meat all the time. Fortunately, Lin Qiye was born with supernatural power and could snatch resources. Things are looking good. Grandma Lin looked at Lin Qiye with a smile. I don't know how long I can live either. You are born with supernatural strength. Even if I die tomorrow, you can still live on. I can be at ease. Grandma Lin started to exclaim, as all other elderly do. Lin Qiye listened as he roasted the steak. Not long after, the fragrance of the steak filled the entire room, causing Lin Qiye to drool. Grandma Lin also gulped. The two of them wolfed down their food and had a good meal. Without a doubt, from today onwards, Lin Qiye and Grandma Lin's lives had officially gone from the edge to a better life. And in the following period, Grandma Lin and Lin Qiye both lived in Li Mao's house and were so happy that they did not even think of their little room. They could eat all the meat and potatoes they wanted. They didn't need to worry about food at all. During this period, some ignorant fellows came to disturb them, but Lin Qiye, who was as fierce as a bull, shattered their hearts. They died on the spot. After a few hooligans died, the security in the slums had been restored, and Lin Qiye had become more prosperous by robbing their houses of storage materials. He lived a life full of flavor. Every day, apart from eating and drinking to his heart's content and practicing the Dao repository technique, he patiently waited for his body to mature. Time passed quickly. Lin Qiye grew to 1 year old. Although he was only 1 year old, his body was almost the same as that of a 6-year-old child. His height also reached 1.3 meters. The innate qi in his body reached 3,000 strands. His growth rate soared. Lin Qiye had a feeling that when his body matured, the innate qi would give him an extremely heaven-defying boost. However, if he wanted his body to mature, he would have to wait another 5 years. 5 years was not a short period. One had to know that if Lin Qiye could not change his fate in this life, he could only live to 12 years old. In other words, in another 5 years, Lin Qiye would have lived half of his life. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. According to the original plot, when I am 11 years old, the spiritual energy will start to restore, and the celestial race will descend. The combat strength of the celestial race should at least be at the peak of Golden Core Realm, right? If I wait until my body matures, I would only have 3 to 5 years to plan the spiritual energy restoration in advance. If I want to defy the heavens and change my fate, time is a little tight. It would be great if I could mature in a year. Lin Qiye sighed slightly. Chapter 20 I like your villa. Can you move out? To Lin Qiye, time was indeed tight. After all, in the original version of his life, he had only lived for a short 12 years. His lifespan was extremely short. If he spent 5 years waiting for his body to mature, half of his life would be spent on growing his body. If he could mature in a year, Lin Qiye would be able to save 5 years, and he would be able to plan for the restoration of spiritual energy to deal with the descent of the celestial race. Unfortunately, Lin Qiye's body growth had already reached its limit. If he continued to pursue speed, it would have an adverse effect. And Lin Qiye had a premonition. Spending 5 years to slowly mature his body was a perfect choice. Although he couldn't cultivate the qi refinement technique, he could use the Dao repository technique to nurture innate qi and condense an innate divine body. Once he condensed an innate divine body, it would probably allow his future to soar to an immeasurable height. When he was 1 year old, a mouse should bite off his ear. When he was 3, a drunkard should have hurt his leg. When he was 4 years old, his left hand should have been broken. When he was 6 years old, he should have lost his hearing in his left ear. However, these disasters wouldn't happen again. After all, Lin Qiye now had 3% power of the dragon elephant body. No matter what gangster he faced, he could kill them with a single punch. With this in mind, Lin Qiye let out a sigh of relief. He finally felt a little relaxed. As long as I'm careful and change my fate continuously, it won't be a problem for me to live to 6 years old safely. Lin Qiye smiled slightly. As expected, he killed some gangsters and lived for 5 years peacefully. He was already 6 years old. At this time, Lin Qiye's height shot up like a bamboo shoot after a rain, reaching 1.8 meters. The dragon elephant body appeared at 20% power. The faint silverish dragon elephant phantom condensed into a solid form, but it formed a layer of 3 cm thick silver armor around Lin Qiye. Even a sniper rifle couldn't break through Lin Qiye's defense. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Lin Qiye's dragon elephant body alone was equivalent to a martial arts grandmaster. On the other hand, the innate qi in Lin Qiye's body had also increased from 3,000 strands when he was 1 year old to 20,000 strands. The moment Lin Qiye's body matured, the strands of innate qi surged into his spine. Under its transformation, Lin Qiye's spine had become as warm as jade. It shone with a jade-like luster, overflowing with light and colors, exuding a mystical aura. Vigorous vitality rolled around Lin Qiye's spine and eventually flowed into his limbs and bones. Strands of innate qi were also produced from his spine. Sensing the sudden increase in innate qi, Lin Qiye was a little surprised. I don't even need to absorb the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to produce innate qi. Lin Qiye found it hard to believe. He quickly focused his mind to check the situation. With a glance, Lin Qiye was dumbfounded. Before this, due to the weak spiritual energy, Lin Qiye's speed of nurturing his innate qi was greatly suppressed. He could only nurture 10 strands of innate qi every day. But after his divine spine was formed, it was like a spiritual spring that could automatically nurture innate qi. Without Lin Qiye needing to absorb the spiritual energy between heaven and earth, it could automatically nurture innate qi. Furthermore, the amount of innate qi nurtured was 3 times more than before, and he could produce 10,000 strands in a year. Interesting. Is this the benefit of having an innate divine body? It's exceptional. However, right now, only my spine has reached the divine level. If every bone in my body reaches the divine level, how heaven-defying would the effects be? Perhaps, new functions will be born. Lin Qiye laughed heartily. I knew it. Condensing an innate divine body will bring endless benefits. More importantly, I can now cultivate the qi refinement technique. Lin Qiye's eyes were burning. Even though the spiritual energy had yet to restore, the celestial race had yet to descend, and the spiritual energy in the world was thin, Lin Qiye didn't care. He climbed up the attic, sitting cross-legged. He was facing the sky as he quietly cultivated the flawless qi refinement technique. He had to admit that the spiritual energy between heaven and earth at this stage was still too weak. However, Lin Qiye was using an SSS-grade permanent talent. It was the qi refinement technique that had been perfected through the deduction of Genesis, and its conversion efficiency was extremely high. In just 10 days, Lin Qiye had already reached the first level of the qi refinement realm. I'm already at the first level of the qi refinement realm. It shouldn't be a problem for me to fight against hundreds. Lin Qiye suddenly stood up. His body was as light as a swallow as he flew to the roof behind the house. He moved without anyone noticing him, like a ghost. As expected of the cultivation technique that I've deduced. It's too ridiculous. Lin Qiye smiled. The increase in strength brought by the qi refinement technique was extremely terrifying. Unfortunately, the spiritual energy between heavens and earth was too thin, and it was not good for cultivation. I have to think of a way to find a place with rich spiritual energy. Lin Qiye gazed into the distance. Deduction of Genesis, is there a spring with rich spiritual energy nearby or a precious place for cultivation? This deduction consumed 500 movement points, remaining 23,000 movement points. Deduction successful. On the shore of the Divine Martial Lake in the northwest of the city, there is a dry well in the 6th villa. Below the dry well, a spiritual spring is gradually recovering. Looking at the result of the deduction, Lin Qiye slightly raised his eyebrows. It seems that I have to explore the city. There were only 5 years left before the spiritual energy restoration and descendants of the celestial race. In 5 years, he had to arrange everything. Therefore, Lin Qiye couldn't waste any more time in the slums. He would leave tonight. He made up his mind. However, before he left the slums, Lin Qiye went to the desolate forest. He used force and 10 strands of innate qi to tame a fierce tiger and brought it back to the slums. Your mission is to protect my grandmother. If anyone tries to hurt my grandmother, you will bite them to death. The tiger lay on the ground and nodded its head wildly. It worshipped Lin Qiye to the extreme and wished it could tell Lin Qiye it would do its utmost to protect his grandmother. However, Lin Qiye could also feel the tiger's emotions. He was relieved. Stepping into the vast night sky, he quietly crossed the city borders and appeared at a bar. May I ask who lives in the 6th villa? At the noisy bar counter, Lin Qiye asked a woman who was wearing skimpy clothes, exposing her breasts. SHH. Don't pry. That's one of the biggest bullies in the city. The woman took a puff of her cigarette and reached out to grab Lin Qiye's crotch. Her eyes were blurred. She wanted to have a taste of Lin Qiye, a handsome man. But Lin Qiye quickly dodged and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. In villa area number 6, the lights were brightly lit. Outside the villa, there were bodyguards armed with guns. And inside the villa, there were layers of guards patrolling the area. There was no doubt that this was a wealthy family with power and influence. In the study on the east side of the villa, the head of the family had rough facial features with a black beard. His eyes were more vicious than peaceful. One of his hands was lightly dusting the ashes of a cigar. He flipped through a thick stack of documents on the table with his other hand. Lin Qiye arrived in front of him like a gust of wind and knocked on the desk. Your villa has been requisitioned. Can you please move out? Oh right, leave me 1 million angel coins as pocket money. The man looked confused and raised his head to look at Lin Qiye. He thought that there was something wrong with Lin Qiye. Who was this boy? How dare he come to his house and ask him to move out? Does he know the man's identity in Zhang City? The man's eyes were filled with ferocity. But immediately after, his hair stood on end. How did this boy enter? Why didn't the bodyguards notice? Could it be that he was a first-rate killer? When the man understood this point, the ferocity in his eyes quickly disappeared. He nodded and bowed respectfully instead. Sir, I will do as you say. The villa is yours now. I'll leave first. The man ran out of the study room. The moment he turned around, murderous intent and mockery appeared in his eyes. Foolish young man. He dared to let me go, the blood tornado. In a while, your time will come. Blood Tornado could not help but laugh in his heart. Little did he know that Lin Qiye had let him leave on purpose to call for help. After all, if he wanted to establish his authority and have complete control over the villa owner, he would have to show off his terrifying strength. Therefore, he would let the owner properly set up a stage to show off. A few minutes later, outside the study, 20 tall and sturdy bodyguards with bulging muscles aimed their automatic rifles at Lin Qiye. Bang, bang. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. The gunshots rang like firecrackers. Hundreds and thousands of bullets swept into the study. All right. That idiot must have been shot into a sieve. Blood Tornado sneered. Bah, stupid thing. Be smarter in your next life. Chapter 21 The girl who gave off a strange medicinal scent. Don't think that just because you're an assassin and had some stealth, you could provoke me. Some time ago, a girl who ranked second on the assassin rankings came to assassinate me, but she ended up getting injured by gunfire. I broke her tendons and tortured her for more than 10 days. Girls who practiced martial arts since young were really exciting. Her flat stomach was white and smooth. It's a pity that she died from refusing to eat. However, her corpse isn't too bad either. There was a lustful and vicious look in Blood Tornado's eyes. That's why I said that times have changed. What's the use of becoming a martial arts grandmaster? Won't you still be shot to death? Blood Tornado was pleased with himself as he laughed maniacally. However, all of a sudden, his laughter came to an abrupt halt. That was because Lin Qiye had walked out of the study room unscathed. There was not a single scratch on Lin Qiye's body, let alone a hole. The bodyguards' expressions changed. Gritting their teeth, they fired wildly at Lin Qiye. However, silver light circulated around Lin Qiye's body, deflecting all the bullets. Amidst the rain of bullets, Lin Qiye walked step by step to the front of Blood Tornado, a smile curling up at the corner of his mouth. I'm sorry, the times haven't changed. NAS. Seeing that Lin Qiye was unharmed, Blood Tornado's face was pale, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He roared at the top of his lungs and ordered his professional bodyguards. Shoot, shoot, kill him. Lin Qiye shook his head lightly and turned into a shadow in an instant, floating behind the bodyguards. Crack. The necks of the bodyguards snapped in response. Their heads, which had lost the support of their bones, hung limply in front of their chests. More than 20 bodyguards bulged their eyes and stuck out their tongues. They died a gruesome death. Blood Tornado subconsciously shrank his neck, but he was shocked to realize that a palm was pressing down on the back of his neck. He slowly turned his head and just happened to see Lin Qiye's cold expression. Blood Tornado immediately broke out in a cold sweat, and tears flowed down his cheeks. A strong smell of urine even gushed out from his crotch. He had fought for decades in Zhang City. What kind of martial arts expert had he not seen before? Even a grandmaster was afraid of bullets. However, Lin Qiye was not afraid at all. Under the bombardment of dozens of rifles, he was still unharmed. 211. NAS. Even sci-fi novels did not dare to write plots like this. Blood Tornado was terrified. He suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed with all his might. Sir, please spare my life. I know my mistake. I am willing to be your slave. Please spare my life. Lin Qiye's expression was calm. Do you know how to be a good slave? Blood Tornado kowtowed until his face was covered in blood. I know. I will definitely be a good slave. Lin Qiye glanced sideways at Blood Tornado. This villa is mine now, and you are my slave. Go to the side and listen to my orders at any time. Of course, if you are not convinced, you can drive an armored tank to fight me. However, the consequences of failure are serious. If you want your whole family to be wiped out, you can take a gamble. Lin Qiye's tone was cold and emotionless. However, when these words fell into Blood Tornado's ears, it was as if a piece of ice had been stuffed into his heart. Waves of chill shot straight to the top of his head. No, no, this servant does not dare to resist. This servant will definitely pay my respects to master. Upon hearing this, Lin Qiye waved his hand. Get lost. Yes. Blood Tornado nodded and bowed before fleeing in dejection. Seeing that idiot leave, Lin Qiye frowned in disdain. If it isn't for the fact that I needed 1 or 2 capable subordinates, I would have killed you long ago. However, when I am done with my work, your time will come. Right now, cultivation is the most important thing. Let me see what's going on in the dry well first. As he muttered, Lin Qiye arrived at the back garden of the villa. He searched carefully but did not see the dry well. Lin Qiye fell into deep thought. The entire garden and the surrounding area of the rockery are luxuriant and different from the others. The dry well must be at the foot of the rockery. He analyzed and took a few steps back. Suddenly, Lin Qiye punched out. A 30-foot-tall dragon elephant phantom shot out, and the rockery was instantly shattered. At the foot of the rockery, the dry well sealed by cement was revealed. It was an ancient well, and it looked like it had been here for hundreds of years. Lin Qiye casually cut off the cement. The well was exposed to the sun again. Wisps of spiritual energy gushed out from the bottom of the well, making Lin Qiye feel refreshed and relaxed. The spiritual energy at the bottom of the well is indeed quite dense. However, it's not enough. Lin Qiye found a shovel, jumped to the bottom of the well and dug down. He dug all the way to 30 meters underground. Lin Qiye touched the rock and found a crack in the ley line. Spiritual energy slowly seeped out from the crevice. So it's a spiritual spring in the depths of the ley line. Lin Qiye was enlightened and dug down along the crevice. In the beginning, the crevice was relatively small, and he had to forcefully dig through it. After digging for dozens of meters, the crevice was wide enough for one person to pass through. Lin Qiye quickly walked forward and finally saw a spiritual spring in the depths of the ground, more than 1,000 meters away. The spring water gathered on the jade-like stone platform and blossomed with bright clouds. White mist floated around like clouds. The spiritual energy was 1,000 times denser than the outside world. Lin Qiye was pleasantly surprised. He immediately sat down cross-legged. He used all his strength to activate the flawless version of the Qi refinement technique and sucked in the rich spiritual energy. In just 3 hours, Lin Qiye had absorbed all the spiritual energy inside the spring and refined them into pure spiritual power. The surging spiritual power surged through his meridians. It allowed Lin Qiye's cultivation to rise to the 3rd level of the Qi refinement realm. The manifestation of his dragon elephant body had also reached 30%. His combat strength had increased by more than 10 times. He could completely blow up an armored vehicle with one punch. Feeling the surge of strength in his body, Lin Qiye's face beamed with joy. Good. As expected of the spirit spring, the benefits are obvious. If I had a few more spirit springs, it would be awesome. Unfortunately, spirit springs are rare, and I've squeezed the one in front of me dry, without a single drop left. I reckon that it will only recover when the spiritual energy restores. Lin Qiye sighed helplessly. What a pity. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth is really thin. To quickly raise my strength, I have to find some more spirit springs. As he spoke, Lin Qiye returned to the well entrance. I'll come again next time. While he was muttering to himself, Lin Qiye suddenly felt refreshed. His gaze suddenly turned to the villa. There, a strange medicinal scent that made Lin Qiye's soul happy slowly floated out. Is it the scent of spiritual herbs? Such a rich and refreshing medicinal scent must come from a spiritual herb that is more than 100 years old. If I can refine it, I could possibly reach the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm. It won't be a problem for me to destroy an aircraft. However, why is there a medicinal scent in the villa? Lin Qiye raised his eyebrows slightly. He walked into the villa with great curiosity. On the first floor of the villa, in the living room, Blood Tornado was busy instructing his servants to prepare a sumptuous dinner. When he saw Lin Qiye arrive, Blood Tornado, the big shot who could command the wind and rain in Zhang City, immediately knelt. Master, please have your meal. These are the best ingredients, but I don't know if they're to your liking. Lin Qiye first swept his gaze around. He discovered that the medicinal scent came from behind the vase under the curtains. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. However, it was not a spiritual herb, but a young girl. A young girl who emitted a medicinal scent? Lin Qiye frowned and fell into deep thought. A few seconds later, he revealed a faint smile. I'll dig in first and see what she wants to do. Chapter 22, Taking the girl as an underling. After all, breaking through 2 levels of his realm consumed a lot of energy. Lin Qiye was already famished and couldn't be bothered with the girl for the time being. Hence, his gaze fell on the food. As a precaution, Lin Qiye spent 1 movement point to confirm whether the food was poisonous. It wasn't poisonous. Lin Qiye immediately ate heartily. After eating and drinking his fill, Lin Qiye wiped his mouth with a wet towel. His cold gaze fell on Blood Tornado. I heard that you're a local bully in Zhang City. Hearing that, cold sweat dripped down Blood Tornado's forehead. He stuttered as if he was constipated. He struggled to say a few words. No, it's not like that. Let me hear what you've done. It's best if you don't hide anything, or I will crush your head. Lin Qiye threatened nonchalantly. Blood Tornado lay on the ground, trembling. I've only robbed a few female civilians. And forcing the other party's family to the brink of destruction, and being a loan shark, torturing boys, baby girls, female assassins, and, in front of a man, I raped his wife. Blood Tornado spoke intermittently of the sins he had committed. Every single one of them could be said to be unpardonable and heinous. Even Lin Qiye wished that he could tear Blood Tornado into pieces. However, he sat on the chair without moving. Instead, he turned his gaze to the window. The young lady hiding behind a vase under the curtains over there, aren't you planning to come out? Lin Qiye's voice was full of energy and clear as it fell into the girl's ears. It was so clear that it was as if he was whispering into the girl's ear. The heart of the girl carefully hiding skipped a beat suddenly. Her face instantly turned pale. However, due to her professionalism as a killer, she did not move at all. She was like a sculpture, her breathing hidden. Only a pair of bright eyes were carefully observing the danger that could approach at any time. Lin Qiye smiled. Are you still hiding? Bodyguard, move the vase away. Lin Qiye gave the order. The girl, unwilling to expose her figure, coughed helplessly and came out from the small space that was so narrow that it was almost impossible to hide. It was a short-haired girl with a tall figure. Her eyes were particularly vivid, like autumn water, cold stars, pearls, and white mercury that was stained with black. The young girl was abnormally puzzled as she stared at Lin Qiye. My concealment technique is the strongest among the assassins. How did you detect me? She wanted to see through Lin Qiye, but Lin Qiye was unfathomable and made her feel despair. On the side, when Blood Tornado saw the young girl, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately pointed at her and angrily berated, You dare to assassinate my master? You're courting death. There was no doubt. Without leaving a trace, Blood Tornado used an underhanded tactic to frame the girl. As expected, the girl's gaze was fierce as she stared at Lin Qiye, putting on a desperate stance. However, Lin Qiye was in a relaxed state. As he knocked on the table with his fingers, he indifferently sneered, Very good, Blood Tornado. You dared to play tricks in front of me, and your entire family will die. Hearing this, Blood Tornado's face turned ashen. His whole body was trembling with fear. He was high and mighty in Zhang City. He trampled on the dignity of others as he pleased. When he killed people as if they were ants, he was unscrupulous. But when someone treated him the same, he was so afraid that he was like a mouse that had met a cat. His heart was full of fear and terror. Blood Tornado walked to Lin Qiye with his knees. Master, I am your slave. How can you kill your slave? Do you think you're worthy of being my slave? Lin Qiye's face was filled with disdain as he sent Blood Tornado flying a few meters with a kick. Blood Tornado was like a dead dog as he crashed through the wooden door of the villa before rolling on the ground and convulsing non-stop. The girl beside him instantly tensed up. Just a moment ago, when Lin Qiye sent Blood Tornado flying, the instincts of a top-tier assassin made her hair stand on end. A strong sense of danger gripped her heart. It made her stop breathing, and she broke out in cold sweat. The young girl realized that in front of Lin Qiye, she, the #1 assassin, was as weak as a chick. Lin Qiye could kill her with a raise of his hand. With that in mind, the young girl swallowed and subconsciously took a few steps back, wanting to escape through the window. You want to jump out of the window to escape, right? It's useless. You can't escape. The corners of Lin Qiye's mouth curled up slightly. His confident appearance caused all thoughts of resistance in the young girl's heart to vanish into thin air. The handsome-looking young man before her was so strong that it exceeded her understanding. No matter what, she didn't have the ability to resist. She could only stand on the spot with a depressed expression. Sir, you won't kill me, right? Hearing that, Lin Qiye smiled lightly. You're here to eradicate the bastard, right? The young girl gritted her teeth. Yes, I want to kill this animal. It killed my good friend. Lin Qiye nodded. Is it the girl who ranked second on the assassin rankings? The young girl's face was filled with grief, and she looked like she was about to cry. Her sincere grief moved even Lin Qiye. You can kill his entire family to avenge that girl. I will help you get rid of those bodyguards. However, I want some information from you. The girl frowned slightly. What information? Lin Qiye slowly answered the girl's doubt. Do you know why I noticed your existence? The girl shook her head in confusion. There is a scent on your body that doesn't belong to you. It comes from a certain divine medicine. Hearing that, the girl couldn't help but hold her breath, forcefully controlling her beating heart. Lin Qiye naturally noticed the girl's abnormality, but he didn't point it out. Instead, he talked to himself. You have a secret base with a divine spiritual herb growing inside. Because of it, your strength has increased rapidly. Am I right? Tell me where the secret base is, and I'll give you corresponding benefits. The girl bit her lips and denied it. What did you say? I don't understand. However, Lin Qiye's burning gaze made the girl feel guilty and flustered. I don't want to tell you. That's my trump card. What would happen if I give it to you? Lin Qiye looked at the girl calmly. I can take you in as my underling. The benefits are endless. Hearing this, the girl pursed her lips. Why should I be your underling? I'm number 1 on the assassin's rankings? Don't I have my pride? Regrading this, Lin Qiye smiled contemptuously. Number 1 on the assassin's rankings? Do you think you deserve to be proud? With that said, a SPI ritual sword condensed in Lin Qiye's hand and slashed across the air. In an instant, half of the villa vanished into thin air. The bright moonlight shone directly on Lin Qiye's face. It made Lin Qiye extremely handsome. Watching the shocking scene where half of the villa was destroyed with one slash, the young girl's red lips slightly parted, and she was dumbstruck. She revealed a bitter and helpless smile. Well, I really don't want to be an underling. I'm the number 1 assassin on the rankings. Boss. The young girl eventually gave in. She bowed cleanly, lowered her head, and obediently greeted Lin Qiye. After calling him boss, a strange current flowed through the young girl's heart. It seemed that calling him boss felt pretty good. After all, the young man in front of her was indeed handsome and valiant. And he even saved her life. It was just that she didn't know how he trained. His strength was like a monster. Ji Qinghuan could not help but be curious. Lin Qiye nodded his head in satisfaction, seeing Ji Qinghuan's obedience. You are smart. I can only say that being my underling will not put you at a disadvantage. Now, I will give you a gift. As they spoke, Lin Qiye threw the first page of the Qi refinement technique to the young lady. This is my cultivation technique. If you use it to cultivate, you will be able to have my strength. Ji Qinghuan was stunned. Her eyes revealed shock and disbelief. Really? This? Of course. You can try it out now. Hearing this, she immediately began reading. During the reading process, she felt something. After years of hard work training to be a killer, the internal energy that she had obtained seemed to be under some mobilization, rapidly circulating in her body. The medicinal effect she had absorbed from the spiritual herb in the past gushed out and gathered in her internal organs, limbs, and bones. It was refined into pure spiritual energy by the Qi refinement technique. Not long after, the young girl's willow-like eyebrows slightly relaxed as she let out a long breath of white mist. It's true, my strength has increased 3 to 4 times. Ji Qinghuan was pleasantly surprised. She finally realized how heaven-defying the Qi refinement technique was. Her hands were trembling, and her breathing was rapid. If I cultivate it to perfection, I can ignore firearms. Is this cultivation? It's so exaggerated. She took a deep breath and looked at Lin Qiye with an extremely shocked gaze. You're willing to give such a precious thing to me. Her heart was warm. She thought of her best friend and could not help but feel sad. If only you could have appeared earlier. Ji Qinghuan bit her red lips tightly. Her eyes were moist and teary. Sigh, it's all fate. Let me continue to help you eradicate the evil. The young girl's heart was filled with a certain conviction. She raised her head and smiled at Lin Qiye like a blooming flower. Brother Ye, thank you. Thank you so much. I will follow you in the future. I'll bring you to see the spiritual herb. At this moment, the young lady was sincerely convinced. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. She brought Lin Qiye to her secret base generously. Lin Qiye, who was about to get the spiritual herb, smiled warmly. The 100-year-old spiritual herb can make my strength soar again. Ji Qinghuan will also be my faction in the future. The stronger she is, the stronger my faction will be, and the more confident I will be when the spiritual energy restores and the celestial race descends. Lin Qiye thought to himself. Chapter 23 Devouring Lightning. Supreme Bone Awakening? As a galaxy practitioner, everything Lin Qiye did was for two things. 1. To change his fate. 2. To improve his score, preferably to achieve an SS grade or above. Both of them are not easy. When the restoration of spiritual energy comes, the celestial race will descend. There are only 5 years left. Lin Qiye has a premonition that the strength of the celestial race is enough to crush this world. If he did not build a huge force, resist the celestial race, and even exterminate them, Lin Qiye might not get an SS grade. And for that, Lin Qiye decided to take Ji Qinghuan under his wing. After all, this girl, a top-rated killer, could die trying to get revenge for her friend. Regardless of character or strength, she has reached the requirements. It's just that, the spiritual energy in this world is too thin. Even if I cultivate alone, I'll need to use up all my resources. To build up a force, it'll be a headache. Lin Qiye shook his head slightly. An hour later, Ji Qinghuan led Lin Qiye and landed in front of a valley. The valley was endless. On the open plains at the entrance, there were thousands of charred corpses. There were wild boars, wild horses, and bears. It was like the Valley of Death. Lin Qiye looked far into the distance. He saw the sky above the valley, with dazzling clouds formed by lightning. The clouds blotted out the sky and covered the sun. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled as if fierce beasts were fighting in the valley. The clouds were like a beating heart. Every once in a while, it would beat violently. When it beat violently, all the clouds exploded outward. Lightning flashed across the surrounding mountains. All the mountains were burned red. The wild animals that passed by were probably killed by the heartbeat. Of course, there were many human-shaped corpses at the periphery of the valley too. Brother Yet, the spiritual herb is inside. However, we can only enter it once during a special moment. Otherwise, we will turn into a charred corpse. Ji Qinghuan pointed at the human-shaped corpses. That corpse is said to be a martial arts grandmaster. He has never been afraid of lightning since he was young. However, when he came here, he still turned into ashes. It was also by coincidence that I discovered the pattern of entry. We should be able to enter in another 5 to 6 days. Ji Qinghuan estimated the time. However, Lin Qiye did not have the patience to wait for 5 to 6 days. He looked at the thunderclouds that covered the entire valley and thought quietly. When he saw the rolling thunderclouds, Lin Qiye did not know why, but he felt an inexplicable sense of closeness. He could not help but have an extremely absurd thought: swallowing them would bring endless benefits. What kind of thought was this? Lin Qiye's expression was strange, but his intuition had been blessed by his SSS grade talent, the deduction of Genesis. He had never failed. Hence, Lin Qiye thought of giving it a try. He activated the deduction of Genesis. Help me calculate a method to solve the lightning clouds. This deduction requires 1,000 movement points, 22,499 remaining movement points. Deduction successful. Your physique is special. If you walk into the lightning valley directly, you will be able to devour the lightning clouds. After that, you will awaken an unparalleled bone structure. Seeing the result of the deduction, Lin Qiye raised his eyebrows. Awaken an unparalleled bone structure. According to the hints of how this life is supposed to go, I did have an outstanding bone structure in my body. After the spiritual energy restoration, it will be forcibly taken away by the mysterious organization. And the bone structure being taken away is the main reason why I died tragically in the dungeon. I always thought that I could only awaken the bone structure after spiritual energy was restored. I didn't expect to bump into this opportunity. Lin Qiye's face revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. As he spoke, he took a step forward. The dragon elephant phantom on his body appeared and turned into an afterimage, crashing into the lightning and clouds. Seeing this scene, Ji Qinghuan's hair stood on end, and her scalp went numb. Brother Yet, don't go. However, before she could finish her words, the 10-meter-tall dragon elephant phantom collided with the lightning and clouds. The lightning and clouds contained extremely violent energy. The moment they came into contact with Lin Qiye, there was a shocking thunderstorm that shook heaven and earth. Then, bolts of lightning that were as thick as pythons surged into Lin Qiye's limbs, bones, and internal organs. They wanted to shock Lin Qiye into human-shaped ashes. However, Lin Qiye's physical body was exceptionally special. Bolts of lightning as big as dragons struck Lin Qiye's body aggressively. However, they were devoured by Lin Qiye and turned into pure energy that washed over every bone in Lin Qiye's body. The lightning is refining his bones and cleansing his marrow. Lin Qiye felt overjoyed in his soul. Streaks of lightning that could destroy the world couldn't harm him at all. On the contrary, it gradually woke up the dormant bone structure in Lin Qiye's body. Lin Qiye was satisfied as he exhaled a breath of white mist. It seems that my unparalleled bone structure is related to lightning. Therefore, I am the lightning's natural nemesis. Lin Qiye smiled and strolled towards the depths of the valley. The lightning clouds sensed Lin Qiye's abnormality and frantically avoided him. However, Lin Qiye had tasted the sweetness of their power. How could he let the lightning clouds escape? He immediately charged forward and chased after the lightning clouds. Half an hour later, the lightning clouds that covered the sky in the valley disappeared under Lin Qiye's devouring. All the bones in Lin Qiye's body turned purple-gold in color. Bright lightning flowed within his bones. So my bone structure is the 9-colored divine lightning body? When it is fully formed, the 9-colored divine dragon will hover within my body. With a raise of my hand, I can even break through the diamond barrier of space and time. Lin Qiye's eyes were burning. He laughed out loud in surprise. His intuition told him that he had encountered a treasure. He should only have had the chance to encounter an unparalleled bone structure like this when he was a diamond practitioner. The probability of a silver practitioner encountering it was 1 in a trillion. But under Lin Qiye's fortuitous encounter, he had encountered this 1 in a billion chance and even awakened his bone structure. It was even more exciting than winning the lottery. Lin Qiye was secretly delighted. TASSE. Although I have only swallowed an ordinary thundercloud for the time being, and the potential of my Deo bone structure has only been partially stimulated, its lethality is terrifying. Lin Qiye raised his hand, and a ball of lightning twined around the tip of his finger. He pointed lightly, and the lightning shot out. In the next moment, the towering mountains in the distance disappeared with a loud bang. The power of the lightning is indeed extraordinary. Lin Qiye clicked his tongue in wonder. Behind him, Ji Qinghuan blinked in a daze. He devoured the lightning in the valley, and he can even control the lightning and flatten a 100-meter-tall mountain with a raise of his hand. In comparison, the training methods of an assassin are too inferior. Ji Qinghuan suddenly sighed. As the number 1 assassin, Ji Qinghuan finally understood that she was a little frog at the bottom of a well. The pride of being number 1 on the assassins' rankings was just a joke. Cultivating immortality was the way to go. It was difficult for Ji Qinghuan to calm down. Envy, admiration, yearning, desire, and many other emotions flashed across her eyes. She fell into deep thought. However, before she had time to think, Lin Qiye landed in front of her. Let's go. Bring me to see the 100-year spiritual herb. Ji Qinghuan quickly nodded and took the lead to enter a cave. Deep in the cave, a 3-foot-tall purple ginseng seedling was glowing. Purple mist floated above the ginseng seedling. Lin Qiye walked in front of it and carefully dug it out. Below the ginseng seedling was a white, fat, radish-like human-shaped fruit. The fruit's appearance was spotless, and it was flowing with a purple glow. The rich medicinal scent entered Lin Qiye's lungs. It made the spiritual energy in his body become restless. Lin Qiye's eyes lit up. The 100-year-old spirit ginseng nourished by the lightning clouds contains the medicinal power of 100 years. Fortunately, you didn't swallow it. Otherwise, you would have exploded into thousands of pieces of minced meat. Hearing this, Ji Qinghuan shrunk her head, her face full of fear. I know the consequences. I ate a little bit of it and almost died. From then on, I only dare to train near the spirit herb. Lin Qiye smiled and wasted no more time. He immediately sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he bit the outer skin of the ginseng open, and the purple juice instantly flowed into Lin Qiye's stomach. It turned into boiling lava and exploded. Lin Qiye held his breath and instantly activated the qi refinement technique, refining the medicinal juice in his body. As the refining progressed, Lin Qiye's cultivation soared rapidly. Half an hour later, Lin Qiye's cultivation reached the 4th level of the qi refinement realm. An hour later, Lin Qiye's cultivation reached the 5th level. Finally, Lin Qiye stopped at the middle stage of the 5th level of the qi refinement realm. At this moment, the medicinal liquid in Lin Qiye's body had been completely refined. Lin Qiye slowly opened his eyes, and a trace of joy flashed through them. Not bad. I've cultivated to the 5th level of the qi refinement realm in half a month. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. Lin Qiye was satisfied. After the spiritual energy in his first world had been restored, the cultivators of country Xia were able to roam the planet after reaching the 10th level. Lin Qiye was only a little bit away from being able to roam the entire planet. It was something to be happy about. However, it wasn't enough for him to defend against the invasion of the celestial race alone. He needed help. Therefore, he could use the remaining ginseng skin to create the second cultivator in this world. Chapter 24: The Establishment of Kingdom Xia. Cultivation of the entire kingdom. With this in mind, Lin Qiye took the ginseng skin and walked to Ji Qinghuan. It can raise your cultivation level to the 1st level of the qi refinement realm. Open your mouth. Hearing this, Ji Qinghuan's eyes suddenly lit up. She raised her head obediently and opened her mouth slightly. And so, Lin Qiye placed the ginseng skin into Ji Qinghuan's mouth as if he was feeding a pet. The skin of the ginseng melted as soon as it entered Ji Qinghuan's mouth, turning into a ball of pure medicinal power that rampaged around in her lower abdomen. Ji Qinghuan's face was flushed red, and her neck was drenched in sweat. Steam rose from the top of her head, and her wet hair stuck to her ears. Lin Qiye frowned slightly and berated, "Quickly circulate the qi refinement technique." Hearing the berating, Ji Qinghuan's flustered mind quickly calmed down, and she hurriedly circulated the qi refinement technique. The qi refinement technique was indeed a perfect and flawless version of the cultivation technique. Once it was circulated, it suppressed and swallowed the pure medicinal energy. It was refined into a small stream of pure spiritual energy, merging into Ji Qinghuan's meridians. With a crack, Ji Qinghuan's cultivation broke through the shackles of mortals and reached the first level of the qi refinement realm. The spiritual energy in her body was like a stream, flowing endlessly. The surging spiritual energy made Ji Qinghuan's heart beat faster. Such powerful spiritual energy is even stronger than 100 years of inner strength. I can kill 10 Grand Masters in an instant. Ji Qinghuan was so surprised that she jumped with joy, and her eyebrows flew up. As expected of a cultivation method. I have just started, but I have already surpassed countless martial artists. No wonder Brother Ye can flatten a mountain with a raise of his hand. The cultivation technique can create a god. But Brother Ye, I don't understand. You should have kept such a heaven-defying cultivation technique to yourself. Why did you teach it to me? Hearing this, Lin Qiye smiled indifferently. You'll understand in the future. Come, let's take over Zhang City. More than an hour later, in Zhang City's bullies, who usually committed crimes, welcomed a nightmare. A handsome youth brought a beautiful girl and barged into their heavily guarded villa. He casually killed all the armed bodyguards. Then, he caught all the gangsters. The gangsters were neatly kneeling in the living room of the luxurious villa. Their bodies shook like chaff, and their faces were void of color. They were no longer as arrogant and smug as they used to be. It was because they had been scared out of their wits by the devil like Lin Qiye. Please spare us, sir, and give us a chance to change. We actually want to be good people too. We really want to be good people? We have had the potential since young. The bullies knelt on the ground, crying so hard that tears flowed down their faces. They wailed as if they felt extremely wronged and weak, acting like the victims. Lin Qiye chuckled. He sat casually on the sofa like a godfather. Beside Lin Qiye, Ji Qinghuan's small face was excited. She crossed her arms and stood proudly on the right. She had once fantasized that one day, she would be able to uphold justice like Brother Ye. However, until she became the #1 assassin, she had always feared the automatic rifles in the gangsters' hands. Now, under the leadership of her boss, she had finally achieved her dream. She put on a straight face and looked righteous. Hand over all of your assets? Give me all of your passwords, property, warehouse, gold, gemstones, luxury goods, all of them. The gangsters of the past nodded. Yes, we will hand them all over. I beg you two to spare our lives. In a short while, the cowardly bullies handed over hundreds of billions in wealth. Ji Qinghuan was dumbfounded. After a rough estimation, she realized that their wealth could even build 10 brand new cities. Damn it. All of you are filthy rich, but the common people have been taxed for 100 years. No wonder there are hundreds of thousands of people in the slums outside of Zhang City. All of you deserve to die. Ji Qinghuan raised her brows. Brother Ye, I don't think we can forgive these bastards. Lin Qiye nodded calmly. He raised his right hand, and lightning gathered at the tip of his finger. With a casual wave, the bullies were all turned into charcoal. You will manage the money. I want to build a new city organization and transform Zhang City. Lin Qiye patiently exhorted. 10 days later, Zhang City had established a new organization. As the city lord, Lin Qiye made 3 rules. Firstly, civilians and martial artists were treated equally. Vicious fighting was prohibited inside and outside Zhang City. Slums outside the city will be developed and renovated into new economic zones, and more public-owned factories will be set up to provide employment opportunities for citizens. Secondly, a new cultivation academy and technology academy will be set up in parallel to implement a compulsory education system. Night schools are provided for adults to study. Thirdly, Lin Qiye has issued a recruitment notice to other cities, promising great benefits and recruiting talented researchers to study life science and explore the secrets of genes. Fourth, the first page of the qi refinement art will be announced to the entire city. Cultivators who can sense qi are welcome to Zhang City to learn more advanced cultivation techniques. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Fifth, Lin Qiye put on a bounty for a treasure land rich in spiritual energy with a hefty reward. Following the implementation of a series of new regulations, Zhang City was like a brand new machine, rumbling as it started to operate. The talents in governance carried out Lin Qiye's policies. The security army patrolled Zhang City. If there were any martial artists who did not follow the rules, Ji Qinghuan would injure them severely and hang them on the city wall. Multiple factories such as gun factories, grain factories, bread factories, mining factories, and furniture factories were built. One construction project after another began, providing millions of jobs in Zhang City. Chapter 25 The Establishment of Kingdom Xia. Cultivation of the entire kingdom. At the same time, the Cultivation Academy and Technology Academy were open to the public free of charge. The miners were guaranteed 3 meals a day and free accommodation. As long as they were miners, they could enjoy compulsory education. In just 10 short days, Zhang City had changed completely. It had become a vibrant, harmonious, and modern type of city. Martial artists did not dare to stand high above and oppress the commoners. The commoners lived and worked in peace and contentment. They worked hard and used their hands to become rich. 15 days later, Zhang City's factories were on the right track. The light industry began to provide daily necessities, while the heavy industry produced firearms facilities and transportation tools. The entire Zhang City was thriving and developing rapidly. There were high-rise buildings, commercial streets, giant squares, giant projection screens, public transportation, highways, and new residential areas. A portion of the hundreds of billions of wealth Lin Qiye took from the gangsters had created a perfect modern city. For the first time, the citizens of Zhang City felt safe. They no longer had to worry about being beaten by martial artists like animals. They could walk on the streets with their heads held high. The citizens of Zhang City loved Lin Qiye very much. Of course, Lin Qiye had done all these things to win the people's hearts casually. Lin Qiye himself didn't stay in Zhang City. Instead, he kept searching for spiritual springs and spiritual herbs nearby. As long as he spent some movement points, he would be able to find the location of the spiritual springs accurately. Therefore, in just half a year, Lin Qiye's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, all the way to the 10th level of the Qi refinement realm. Ji Qinghuan, who was following behind Lin Qiye and getting his leftovers, had also reached the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm. However, Lin Qiye's ability at the 10th level of the Qi refinement realm couldn't be measured with common sense. He had the 9-colored divine lightning body, a divine spine, and his dragon elephant phantom was at 70% power. Although his cultivation was only at the 10th level of the Qi refinement realm, he could easily defeat a foundation establishment realm cultivator. It was not a problem for him to run amok in this world. It's just that, against the Celestials, it might not be enough. Lin Qiye's eyes darkened. He slowly walked out of the cave. He handed a small bottle of spiritual liquid to Ji Qinghuan. This is your reward. Thank you, brother Ye. You are so nice. Ji Qinghuan's mouth became sweeter, and the way she looked at Lin Qiye became more intimate. She carefully took the jade bottle and held it tightly in her hand. Report to me. How is Zhang City? Hearing this, Ji Qinghuan's expression became slightly serious. She put on a look that said she knew everything. The entire Zhang City has upgraded. 10 million citizens are registered. We have finished developing the slums, and Grandma Lin moved into the city. The commoners all have jobs. Our light industry, heavy industry, agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, and mining are all developing. As for cultivation, within half a year, Zhang City had 763 more young people who had developed a sense of qi. Their combat ability was enough to sweep away martial arts grandmasters, but they had yet to reach the first level of the qi refinement realm. Of course, there were also 17 cultivators who had reached the first level of the qi refinement realm. The more Ji Qinghuan spoke, the prouder she looked. Her entire body was emitting a radiance, which represented how proud she was to serve the people. Brother Ye, with the strength of Zhang City, we can totally crush all the vassal states, end the chaos, and build a peaceful country. Ji Qinghuan could not help but suggest. If they could destroy the vassal states, there would be countless people living and working in peace. Hearing this, Lin Qiye smiled faintly. Those who have not reached the first level of the qi refinement realm will still be afraid of guns and armored vehicles. If we attack rashly, the losses will be huge. However, we can wipe out all the vassal states near Zhang City. Thus, Lin Qiye brought Ji Qinghuan along to wipe out 2 vassal states and seized 57 cities. They seized gold, silver, jewelry, real estate, mineral veins, forests, pastures, warehouses, and other properties. They gained a total of 8 trillion angel coins. When they saw the total, Ji Qinghuan's eyes were extremely cold. These vassal states are blood-sucking vampires. They have been extorting the people for decades. Even if they only used a small part of this money for infrastructure, investment in schools, research institutes, and factories, there won't be so many slums outside the city. We must get rid of all these vassal states. Lin Qiye nodded. When there are more cultivators in the first level of the qi refinement realm, we will be able to wipe them out. Arrange a lord for each city, and let them rebuild the cities. Use Zhang City as a model. Okay, brother Ye. You are amazing. Ji Qinghuan's tone was cheerful like a little fangirl. Oh right, brother Ye, when I went out this morning, the commoners I met on the way all stopped and bowed to me. That kind of feeling makes me want to cry. I think that all the commoners in Zhang City will love you more as the city lord. You are a person with great qualities. Ji Qinghuan's lips curled into a smile, and her eyes that looked at Lin Qiye shone with admiration. Lin Qiye smiled and turned to the next spiritual spring like an ascetic monk. Ji Qinghuan watched Lin Qiye leave. Confusion appeared on her face. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Sight only. Brother Ye is like a monk. Why is that so? Ji Qinghuan could not figure it out and could only return to Zhang City to choose the new city lords. No matter what you want to do, I want to be able to help you. Ji Qinghuan gritted her teeth. She did not realize that she had gone from a subordinate forced to submit to a subordinate who worked voluntarily every day. Now, her feelings for Lin Qiye had slightly changed.